Chapter 1203. Then what happened after that? Old Madam was at a loss. Her mouth looked even more crooked, and one of her eyes was big and the other small, which was very obvious. Xiao Jing was so upset that he didn't notice these details. After thinking for a while, he said, "Madam of Duke Xing knew that Ruer was dead and I wanted to marry a co-wife. She couldn't stand the stimulation and made such a big trouble because she hated me. Because she hated me, she dared to say anything. Later, she was persuaded to come to her senses. She was so ashamed that she committed suicide." Old Madam's hands trembled. She had always been ruthless, but Madame of Duke Xing was her beloved daughter-in-law, so she couldn't bear it for a while. Her fingers twitched and she asked cautiously, This is the prison of the Ministry of Justice. Not everyone can enter it. They could do nothing about what happened to Wang Xingxue in the past. "Mother, don't worry. I have my own way," Xiao Jing said. At this time, he could only ask Prince Cheng for help. At such a critical moment of life and death, he had to ask Prince Cheng for help. He begged Prince Cheng to help at all costs. "Mother, as long as we do a good job, there will be no problem in the future." Xiao Jing lowered his voice and said, But Madam of Duke Xing is your first wife after all," Old Madam said in a trembling voice. She had vaguely understood it before, but now Xiao Jing had put it out so clearly, which was another thing. Xiao Jing wanted to marry a co-wife and marry young. Old Madam understood Xiao Jing's meaning and turned a blind eye to it. Anyway, she was quite dissatisfied with Madam of Duke Xing. Now it was different. Xiao Jing clearly pushed this matter in front of her and wanted her to make a decision. "Mother, if you continue to be soft-hearted, our entire Marquis Xing's mansion will no longer exist. How can you tell my father about this in the afterlife? How can you face my father?" Xiao Jing said indifferently. He didn't believe in this saying, but now he gave such a convincing reason to Old Madam because he knew clearly that Old Madam believed in this. Old Madam's face was pale. She thought for a while and nodded. "Okay, you have to be careful." "Don't worry, Mother. I'll be careful," Xiao Jing answered. Old Madam still had scruples. "In this way, your reputation may not be very good, and it is inconvenient for Nyang to enter the door immediately." "Mother, compared with the affairs of the entire Marquis Xing's mansion, these are trivial matters. So what if our reputation is a little ruined? As long as there is peace, there is hope. When Ru'er comes back in the future and is favored, everything can be ignored." Xiao Jing said indifferently. "What if Ru'er and Huan know it?" Madame Dowager was still worried. "Huan and Ru'er are smart enough to know that. Huan has to visit Madame Jiang with Nanny Yu and ask him to tell Madame Jiang the truth. Only then can Madame Jiang take it hard," Xiao Jing said calmly. Madame Dowager's heart beat wildly and her eyes were dull. Did it mean that Xiao Hua forced his own mother to die? Thinking about the consequences if she didn't do this, Old Madam gritted her teeth and said, "Okay." Outside the door, Nanny Yu trembled all over as she listened. She carefully moved out to the position where she stood before, only feeling that her back was wet with cold sweat. The relationship between Madame Jiang and Old Madam. She had always seen that Old Madam had always loved Madame Jiang and disliked Infanta Qinghua since she married into the mansion. Now that the one she liked the most had been mercilessly abandoned, what about her? She was just a little old maid. Even if she had feelings, she couldn't compare with Madame Jiang, right? Not only Madame Dowager, but also Master Ho, First Miss and First Young Master were pushing Madame Jiang to death. Of course, Madame Jiang was not a good person. She was vicious and deserved to die. But how could they treat her like this? At least she was harmless to them, especially to a pair of children. She treated them wholeheartedly. How could they be so cruel? Nanny Yu didn't approach and didn't hear the next part of the conversation. She stood at the door with her head down and a burst of panic. Princess Qin frightened her, but she also saw that Princess Qin protected the people around her. The people around her lived well, and there was no news of Princess Qin beating or scolding servants in the Piaoyun courtyard. Compared with the masters of Marquis Xing's mansion, Princess Qin was too kind and affectionate. Nanny Yu sadly found that she had served Old Madam for so many years, but she didn't know when she would be pushed out to bear the blame. She gritted her teeth and had already made a decision in her heart. She was so cruel to her own blood relatives. What was she, a servant? When Xiao Jing went out, he looked at Nanny Yu. Seeing her standing far away from the door, he looked gentle and walked up to Nanny Yu. Marquis. Nanny Yu saluted. Nanny Yu, you are too polite. I have to trouble you with one thing, Xiao Jing said. Marquis, please go ahead. Nanny Yu bowed her head respectfully. First young master wants to see Madame Jiang, and Nanny Yu will accompany him. You can persuade Madame Jiang together and tell her not to talk nonsense. First young master's future depends on Madame Jiang's words. Xiao Jing told her, ask Madame Jiang if Princess Chen said something to her before, which made her so excited all of a sudden. He put part of the blame on Xiao Wanru and let Xiao Wanru take the blame for Xiao Jing. Nanny Yu understood the meaning of Xiao Jing's words and said, Marquis, rest assured. I understand. You are an old servant of my mother and have watched me grow up. It has been so many years. Xiao Jing sighed and said, when this is over, I will send you to live a luxurious life. I can't let you be a servant all the time. Xiao Jing's voice became more and more amiable. The most important thing for a loyal servant was to live a luxurious life. Hearing this, Nanny Yu felt a chill down her spine. If it weren't for her strong self-control, she would definitely not be able to bear it and shiver. Live a luxurious life? She was afraid that it would be the time to kill her, right? If there was a trace of hesitation before, it was completely gone at this time. Thank you, Marquis. I have been serving old Madam for so many years. Old Madam is not in good health now. How can I leave like this? I hope Marquis can fulfill my wish and let me serve old Madam all the time. Nanny Yu looked excited. Xiao Jing looked at Nanny Yu and saw her sincere eyes. He nodded at once and said, well, everything is up to you, Nanny Yu. You are old and in fact, it is best for you to live a luxurious life. I'm not tired. I can still serve old Madam for a few more years. Nanny Yu lowered her head. Well, tidy up and go to the Ministry of Justice with the first young master. Xiao Jing was relieved and nodded with satisfaction. After giving an order, he turned around and left. After she left, Nanny Yu was relieved. She had sensed Marquis's scrutiny just now. If her answer was slightly uncomfortable, she was afraid that she would die here today. Since she was going out, of course, she had to make some preparations. She went in and told old Madam about it, and old Madam nodded. Nanny Yu seemed not to see old Madam's crooked mouth and eyes and turned to leave. After leaving old Madam's main room, she went to the wing room where she lived. She was an old servant of old Madam, and there was a little servant girl to serve her. Nanny Yu wrote a note, sealed it, and asked the little servant girl to send it to Princess Chen, saying that it was for Princess Chen. The little servant girl did not take it seriously. Nanny Yu was old Madam's favorite. Of course, what she wrote was old Madam's idea. After taking the note, she trotted out. Nanny Yu specially told her to leave secretly from the back door. She said that the front door was very messy, and she was afraid that someone would see it and cause trouble. The little servant girl was obedient and didn't even ask. Nanny Yu tidied up her clothes again and came to the place where the carriage was parked to wait. After waiting for a long time, she saw the first young master's wheelchair coming over. She hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. Seeing the first young master's gentle and calm face, she was frightened. Several servants carried the wheelchair to the carriage, and Nanny Yu sat in the small carriage behind. The two carriages left Marquis Xing's mansion one after the other, heading for the Ministry of Justice. In fact, Madame of Jiang hadn't really been sent to the prison of the Ministry of Justice. She just recorded a written confession, which had not been officially regarded as the verdict of the Ministry of Justice. As for other things, they hadn't been done for the time being. Madame of Jiang's identity was not ordinary, so she wasn't really sent to prison. She was just locked up in a temporary room. When they arrived, Madame of Jiang was still making a statement. Hearing that the first young master of Marquis Xing's mansion came to visit his mother, the official of the Ministry of Justice who made the statement didn't embarrass them and let them go in to see Madame of Jiang first. In fact, Madame of Jiang only said a few words now. She just said that she was confused and said it randomly, and they couldn't ask anything else. Nanny Yu and the servant pushed the wheelchair into the room. It was a very simple room, with a table in the middle and a chair behind it. Madame of Jiang sat on a stool in front of the table. She looked a little tidied up with her disheveled hair and no longer looked like a crazy woman. Seeing Xiaohua and come in, she was very excited and suddenly stood up. Huan. Mother. Xiaohua and struggled to stand up with the help of the servant and was about to salute Madame of Jiang. Sit down first. You don't need to salute. Xiao Jing is really useless. He took care of you like this. Madame of Jiang felt sorry for him and came over to press his arm to ask him to sit down. Xiaohua again didn't sit down. He bowed to Madame of Jiang respectfully and then sat down again. He comforted Madame of Jiang, saying, Mother, I am fine. I have almost recovered. You're almost like this. Xiao Jing is really useless. Madame of Jiang scolded. He doesn't care about his son's affairs, but he treats his mistress like a treasure. What mistress? Xiao Jing is so stupid. As a son, he really couldn't say anything when his mother scolded his father. Xiaohua didn't know what to say, so he just lowered his head. When Madame of Jiang stopped scolding, he comforted her. Mother, don't blame my father. He can't do anything about it. He can't do anything about it. Ru-er is dead and your legs are broken. He still wants to marry a bitch. He is fine. Why didn't he get into trouble? Why didn't he die? Madame of Jiang hated Xiao Jing so much that she scolded him. Chapter 1204. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess will be updated as soon as possible. Mother, father had no choice and he had no right to do so. He was afraid that you would be sad and upset about my sister's death, so he asked the servants to block the news. As for me, it's really not a big deal. Xiaohua said gently. From Nanny Yu's point of view, she found that his expression and behavior were almost the same as Master Ho's, which made her feel inexplicably terrified. Since it's not a big deal, why couldn't he protect you? Madame Jiang said angrily. Xiaohua reached out to touch his head and said, Mother, how did you suddenly know this news? Did fifth sister tell you? It was Xiao Wanru. She told me that Ru-er was dead. Why was it Ru-er who died instead of her? My Ru-er was obviously more outstanding and better than her. At the mention of Xiao Yenru, Madame Jiang burst into tears. Mother, don't cry. Did anyone see fifth sister when she came to see you? Xiao Huayin comforted her. How do I know whether anyone saw her or not? Someone must have brought her here. Did she secretly come here to provoke me? Madame Jiang said angrily. Madam, it was I who brought Princess Qin here. Nanny Yu walked out from behind Xiao Hua. Only then did Madame Jiang notice Nanny Yu. She snorted and said, Why did you bring her here? Do you also want to see her provoke and humiliate me? Thinking of the scene at that time, Madame Jiang wanted to tear Xiao Wanru into pieces. She had always looked down on this bitch, but now she looked down on her. When she came to the capital city, she was still such an inconspicuous little girl. Even though she knew her identity, she didn't want to kill her directly. She just asked others to kill her secretly, and Xiao Wanru added fuel to the fire. How could a little girl deserve to be killed by her at that time? Unexpectedly, this bitch was so cunning that Xiao Wanru stepped on her head. If she had known this scene, she would have trampled Xiao Wanru to death. Madame Jiang regretted it so much. Princess Qin wants to see Madame. Nanny Yu said, but she didn't mention that it was old Madame's idea to deceive Princess Chen with a family treasure. She wants to see me, so you brought her here? Are you from Prince Chen's mansion or Marquis Xing's mansion? Madame of Jiang was so angry that she glared at Nanny Yu with hatred. If they were not in prison, she would have reached out and slapped Nanny Yu. How could there be such a careless old servant? She had served Madame Dowager for so many years in vain. Sure enough, Madame Dowager was useless, and so was the old maid around her. They couldn't even handle such a small matter well. Yes, Madame is right. Nanny Yu did not argue and bowed her head to admit her crime. Mother, it's fifth sister's fault for provoking you, but you shouldn't accuse father recklessly. How can we, as your children, survive? You two have quarreled, but now we have to clean up the mess. Xiao Hua and reached out and pressed his forehead, helplessly interrupting Madame Jiang's scolding Nanny Yu. Your father is not a good person. Your sister is gone, and he wants to find another woman. How can his heart be so cruel? I hate him, I hate him. I hate him so much that it would be best if he died. Speaking of this topic, Madame Jiang was a little agitated. Her eyes were filled with a bit of madness as she shouted loudly. Mother, my father has his reasons. Xiaohua sighed. What is his reason? He just covets the beauty of that cheap woman. He wants me to give my place to that cheap woman. Don't even think about it. If something happens to me, I will drag him down with me. Madame Jiang said fiercely. Her face was twisted and no longer beautiful. Xiaohua's patience was about to run out. He reached out and rubbed between his eyebrows. Mother, don't be angry. I have a sister. My father does it for her. I can't let my sister live outside. After all, she is my child. She is your father's child. Your father still has the cheek to say such words. I don't know how many women he has outside. Is he planning to bring all of them home? There will be no place for you in the manor in the future. Madame Jiang couldn't stand this kind of words. She shouted angrily. Nanny Yu stood at the side and didn't say anything. She had said what she needed to say. What happened next was not her business. Mother, don't be like this. It is true that my father has done something wrong. But you can't say such things about him. Do you really want to drag him down with you because of this? Mother, even if you don't have a father, you still have me. I can take care of you. Xiaohua interrupted her again. He stood up slowly and pulled Madame Jiang to sit down on the stool. Then he sat down again. The wheelchair moved forward, looked at Jiang Shi, and softly said, Mother, you still have me. She ran and I can definitely raise you together. Father's private morality is wrong, so you don't have to worry about it. If you really die with him, for such a small matter, what do you want your son to do? How can he live? My parents are gone, and so is the Marquis's mansion. Xiaohua was moved when he said this. His eyes turned red. He looked straight at Madame Jiang with pleading eyes. Madame Jiang felt a pang of heartache. Her son was also a proud son of the heavens, but now that he had fallen to such a state, her heart was filled with sorrow. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and her expression became clearer. I know what to say. Even if she and Xiao Jing were not here, they couldn't let anything happen to Marquis Xing's mansion. The Marquis's mansion belonged to her son. It must belong to her son. She understood what her son meant. She wouldn't say such words again. It was just her guess. She wouldn't talk about it now. She was so angry that she just wanted to drag Xiao Jing with her. Mother, you will be fine. I will take you back home after you finish searching for the statement. If you don't like father, I can take you to another house to stay for a while. Xiaohua's expression calmed down. No, I want to go back. As long as I am here, I won't let that bitch marry me. Madame Jiang shook her head and said with hatred. It was obvious that she was gnashing her teeth at Xiao Jing. Mother! Xiaohua hesitated and lowered his voice. He seemed to be serious. Mother, can you not be so angry? This is not a big deal. Although my father has been wronged, he won't spoil his concubine. It's okay to marry a concubine. I won't let them marry me even if I have to die. Madame Jiang gnashed her teeth and looked aggrieved. Xiaohua didn't say anything. After a long while, he comforted Madame Jiang and said, Mother, don't worry. It won't happen. Stay here. I will go back first. I will come to pick you up when it's over. I know. You can go back now. Madame Jiang nodded and calmed down. Mother, you can tell the truth. You can't frame my father because of his mistress's affair. Marquis Xing's mansion can't withstand the storm anymore. Xiaohua said with a gloomy look. Seeing her son like this, Madame Jiang nodded and said, Don't worry. I won't talk nonsense. She still had a son. She couldn't fight against Xiao Jing. She couldn't die like this. She must go back and stop Xiao Jing from marrying another woman. The news of Madame Jiang's death came to Prince Chen's mansion in the afternoon. Xiao Wanru listened to Qing Er's news calmly. When Nanny Yu's news came, she knew that Madame Jiang was going to die in the hands of her son and husband. She didn't pity Madame Jiang. She even felt that she was mocking her. In his previous life, the blood of his branch had forged the prosperity of the second branch. Now, they were just repaying this debt of blood. Madame Jiang probably didn't expect that she would end up like this. She didn't know that her son would also deal with her. She went to the Ministry of Justice to make a statement, but she lost her life. This would definitely cause a great disturbance. Does Prince know the news? Xiao Wanru was worried about Chu Luchen. Don't worry, Your Highness. Prince has known it for a long time. When Xiao Xuanzi came to inform me, he asked me to tell you not to worry, Qing said with a smile. Madame Jiang's death made the people around Xiao Wanru feel refreshed. Madame of Marquis Xing had been secretly targeting Xiao Wanru after she entered the capital city. When Nanny Yu sent the news, Xiao Wanru had already informed Chu Luchen. Thinking that Chu Luchen had already been prepared, she nodded. Xiao Jing was not the only one who intervened in Madame Jiang's death. There were others. Xiao Jing's power was not so long, so it was impossible for him to directly intervene in the Ministry of Justice. There should be someone behind him, and it should be Prince Cheng. Chu Luchen had told Xiao Wanru about Xiao Jing and Prince Cheng. Prince Cheng had always been very low-key and didn't cause any trouble at ordinary times. It seemed that he really wanted to live in peace. He had been living in the temple with a clear mind and few desires. It was impossible to get anything on him. Now it was an opportunity. In Chu Liuchen's study, he leaned lazily against the broad railing of the chair, knocked on the railing with his slender fingers, and said casually, "Have you found the person?" Yes, he is a low-ranking official of the Ministry of Justice. At that time, he entered the room and then left. After that, no one else entered the room. He said that he went to arrange for Madame Jiang to make a statement. After that, when the person who was supposed to make a statement entered the room, Madame Jiang died. She hit her head against the wall and the ground was covered with blood. Xiao Xuanzi reported in detail. He didn't tell Qing in detail before. Isn't there always someone monitoring the place where the statement is made? Where is that person? Chu Luchen asked. That person has been monitoring the place and even heard the conversation between Madame Jiang and the first young master Xiao clearly. After the first young master Xiao left, he thought that there was nothing to do, so he went to another room to monitor the place. It was a coincidence that he saw the first young master Xiao leave. When he left, Madame Jiang was fine. But when the person who made the statement entered the room again, Madame Jiang was already dead. Xiao Xuanzi said, "No one found the person who sneaked in. Pay attention to the number of people. Take this person down. He should die tonight. After finding him, send him to Chu Qing. Hasn't he been reluctant to do it? Let them see." Chu Luchen said leisurely. Prince Cheng had poked his head out. In this case, he wouldn't let him shrink his head back. As for Chu Qing, he didn't have the guts to do it. He had been secretly playing tricks all the time. Moreover, there were a group of people behind him. They looked weak, but in fact, they were not weak. End of this chapter. Chapter 1205. Love to Read divided by 5,200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. The Imperial Court and the public were shocked by the news that Madame Jiang of Marquis Xing died in the Ministry of Justice. Some officials who got the news all came to the Ministry of Justice to inquire about it. It was just an ordinary summons to make a statement. How could such a horrible thing happen? No one could believe it. Someone intervened in the Ministry of Justice or Madame Jiang really committed suicide. After receiving the news, the minister of the Ministry of Justice took Wen Shiqi to the emperor's imperial study and knelt in front of the emperor to ask for forgiveness. The emperor looked at the memorial in front of him with a livid face and was very angry. Such a small thing could cause a great uproar. After reading it, the memorial was thrown down. Tell me what's going on. The Ministry of Justice can't even handle such a small thing well. How could such a person die? Your Majesty, please calm down. Listen to my report. Although the minister of the Ministry of Justice looked pale, his words and deeds were calm. When Madame Jiang entered the Ministry of Justice, there was a strangulation mark on her neck. She said that Marquis Xing did it to her, But Marquis Xing said that he didn't know. Maybe she did it herself and deliberately wanted to hurt Marquis Xing. Since she dared to do it at that time, she should be able to do it now. Do you mean that Madame Jiang hit the wall to take revenge on Marquis Xing? The emperor said coldly. I think it may be the same as what happened before. She just wanted to make some trouble on purpose. I didn't expect that it happened. The minister of the Ministry of Justice thought for a while and said, also for Xiao Jing? Well, the minister of the Ministry of Justice hesitated for a moment and said, the monitor said that Madame Jiang hated Princess Chen very much and said that Princess Chen had something to do with Princess Chen when she learned that her daughter was dead. Princess Chen specially told Madame Jiang about Xiao Baolin. The servants of Marquis Xing's mansion can testify. I think it also has something to do with Princess Chen. This was what the monitor reported. Listening to Jiang Shi's words, she also hated Chen Wangfei very much. Suddenly hearing the news of her daughter's death, no one could bear it. After waking up, it was also possible for her to resent her niece who was in the next room. As for hitting the wall, with the strangulation mark on her neck, it was not impossible. Your Majesty, I don't think this has anything to do with Princess Chen. When Shiqi kowtowed to the emperor and said, the emperor raised his eyes and asked, I don't think this has anything to do with Princess Chen because of a few key points. Although the monitor said that Madame Jiang hated Princess Chen and said that Princess Chen deliberately told Madame Jiang the news of Xiao Baolin's death in order to make Madame Jiang go crazy and do something harmful to Marquis Xing's mansion, this is only the one-sided statement of Marquis Xing's mansion. I heard that Princess Chen went to Marquis Xing's mansion today at the request of Marquis Xing's mansion, not Princess Chen took the initiative to go there. Everyone in the capital city knows that Marquis Xing's mansion treats Princess Chen badly and doesn't treat her as a real family member. Even so, Princess Chen went to Marquis Xing's mansion as soon as possible when something happened in Marquis Xing's mansion. As for Madame Jiang, she has been locked up before. Princess Chen has a bad relationship with Marquis Xing's mansion, so she can't go to visit without someone leading her. At the request of Marquis Xing's mansion, someone from Marquis Xing's mansion led Princess Chen there and then pushed the blame on Princess Chen. Moreover, it was a servant of Marquis Xing's mansion who testified. Your Majesty, do you think this is credible? When Shiqi analyzed unhurriedly. With this analysis, it seemed that Princess Chen had fallen into someone's trap. The emperor's face darkened. Princess Chen was plotted against? I don't know whether Princess Chen was plotted against or not. But later, Madame Jiang shouted at the door and said that Marquis Xing killed the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua. Prince Chen happened to hear it, so she was sent to the Ministry of Justice. If this matter is really investigated, Marquis Xing can't escape. If it is true, I'm afraid that the entire Marquis Xing's mansion will be implicated. When Shiqi was very careful. Xiao Jing wanted to escape the crime? The emperor thought of something and suddenly asked with a frown. If it was true, Xiao Jiang, the heir of Duke Xing, had died in Xiao Jing's hands? Not only Xiao Jiang, but also Infanta Qinghua? I don't know. I only know that if Madame Jiang didn't commit suicide, someone deliberately destroyed the evidence. The person who destroyed the evidence was, of course, the person who was most beneficial to him. Who was most beneficial to him? Xiao Jing? Since Madame Jiang shouted at the door, Xiao Jing was immediately involved. Moreover, he was sent to the Ministry of Justice by Prince Chen, so the Ministry of Justice would definitely investigate it, even if they thought it was impossible. This was also why Madame Jiang was taken to the Ministry of Justice to make a statement. Otherwise, with her identity, how could she be taken away so easily? However, it was Prince Chen who asked to take her away, so no one dared to say anything. In the Imperial study, except for the Minister of the Ministry of Justice and Prime Minister Zhang, they were also silent at this time. After listening to Wen Shiqi's words, they realized that whose power did Xiao Jing use to secretly plot against Madame Jiang? If it was true, did Xiao Jing really plot against his own brother? Prime Minister Zhang's eyes fell on Wen Shiqi. How dare Xiao Jing say this? If he and Prime Minister Wen talked about it, he would not say it so directly. He should be more tactful. After all, he was still a young man, so he was always too greedy. Prime Minister Zhang shook his head secretly. He felt that when Shichi was very radical. After a moment of silence, the emperor said angrily, "Investigate this matter. Prime Minister Zhang, you handle it." With such a big mistake in the Ministry of Justice, the emperor was also worried about the Minister of the Ministry of Justice, so he asked Prime Minister Zhang to handle this matter and supervise the Minister of the Ministry of Justice. "Yes, Your Majesty." Prime Minister Zhang nodded and took over the task. He led the Minister of the Ministry of Justice and Wen Shichi out of the Imperial study. When they were outside, the Minister of the Ministry of Justice heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. What had happened was so appalling that it was unheard of. "Sorry to trouble you, Prime Minister Zhang." The Minister of the Ministry of Justice cupped his hands to Prime Minister Zhang. "It doesn't matter. I work for the Emperor. Please tell me the specific situation at that time." Prime Minister Zhang said with a gentle smile and waved his hand. "At first, Prince Chen sent someone to deal with this matter. It happened that third young master Wen was here, so I asked him to go first. Since Prince Chen wants to make a statement, I didn't expect that such a thing would happen." The Minister of the Ministry of Justice had a headache. Since Madame Jiang died in the Ministry of Justice, it was really difficult to deal with this matter. "Then tell me about it. Let's talk as we walk." Prime Minister Zhang patted Wen Shichi on the shoulder and said, he and Prime Minister Wen had been in the same court for many years. Although they had always been at odds with each other on the surface and had different political views, they had a good relationship in private. In his eyes, Wen Shichi was his nephew. "Yes, I understand." Wen Shichi nodded, but his eyes bypassed Prime Minister Zhang and fell on a corner in front of them. At the corner, Chu Luchen, who was dressed in a black brocade robe, walked over. His handsome face revealed a frivolous smile under the sun. He looked calm and was not affected by Madame Zhang's death at all. Prime Minister Zhang and the Minister of the Ministry of Justice also saw it. They waited for Chu Luchen to come over and salute him. "Your Highness." Chu Luchen stopped and asked, "Prime Minister Zhang and Minister Zhang, are you here for the matter of Madame Jiang?" Prime Minister Zhang answered, "Is Uncle angry?" Chu Luchen pointed in the direction of the Imperial study. "The Emperor is very angry." Prime Minister Zhang nodded and sighed. "This is really strange. Why did Madame Jiang commit suicide inexplicably? Who knows? Maybe she thought that her death would bring more benefits to her son." Chu Luchen said indifferently. It could be seen that he did not care about Madame Jiang's death. Prime Minister Zhang's eyes fell on Chu Luchen's face and examined him. In fact, they did not take Prince Chen seriously before. He was the legitimate son of the former emperor and was weak. Even if he wanted to, he did not have the ability. So what if he was favored by the emperor and the empress dowager? Now they had to look at him seriously. When did Prince Chen walk in front of them in such an unstoppable manner? Did they misunderstand something? His eyes inadvertently met Chu Luchen's. His eyes were deep and dark like two deep ink-colored pools, as if they could extinguish endless light. His heart involuntarily skipped a beat. "Prime Minister Zhang, is there anything else? Why do you keep looking at me?" Chu Luchen looked at Prime Minister Zhang and asked with a smile. Prime Minister Zhang reacted quickly. He smiled slightly and said, "Prince Chen, you seem to look much better. My body is almost healed. My previous appearance has made Prime Minister Zhang laugh." Chu Luchen said with a faint smile. Prime Minister Zhang's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly said, "What's there to laugh at? It's a blessing for the entire country of Dongtsang that Your Highness has recovered. Your Highness, please go ahead." "Prime Minister Zhang, you're too polite." Chu Luchen narrowed his eyes and glanced at Wen Shichi, who was silent. Then he went to the Imperial study. Prime Minister Zhang and the others turned and walked out. Along the way, Prime Minister Zhang did not ask Wen Shichi anything, and Wen Shichi did not take the initiative to mention it either. The Minister of the Ministry of Justice looked at them and found that they were both thinking about something, so he stopped talking. In fact, he was also worried about how the matter had become like this. When Chu Luchen entered the Imperial study, he saw the Emperor sitting behind the desk angrily. He was still angry. He took a step forward with a smile and bowed respectfully to the Emperor. Greetings. Why are you here at this time? Seeing Chu Luchen, the emperor slightly restrained his anger and asked. I heard that something happened to the Jiang family, so I specially came to ask what happened. It was originally caused by me, and I'm sorry to trouble you, uncle. Chu Luchen said gently. It has nothing to do with you, Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing. The emperor said angrily. Since Xiao Jiang went to Marquis Xing's mansion, it had become more and more improper. Now such a thing happened. He can't even handle the affairs in his mansion well. At first glance, I can tell that he is useless. Chu Luchen did not answer. He sat down in a chair beside him and took a sip of the tea served by a little eunuch. Then he said slowly, Uncle, the Jiang family said at the gate of Marquis Xing's mansion that Marquis Xing harmed the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua. I don't know if it is true. If it is true, Xiao Jing is really too capable. There is someone behind Xiao Jing? The emperor pressed his hand on the desk and stopped immediately. This was what appeared in his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 1206. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. If there was someone behind Xiao Jing, what happened to Xiao Jiang happened more than a decade ago. At that time, his son was still young and the S in the harem did not have such a long reach. The only answer was his younger brother, Prince Cheng. He clenched his fists slowly. Was Xiao Jing Prince Cheng's man? If that was the case, then he deserved to die. Uncle, don't be angry. Don't hurt your health. When I came in just now, I saw Prime Minister Zhang and the Minister of the Ministry of Justice go out. Prime Minister Zhang has always been capable and will find out soon. I'm here to report another thing today. Chu Luchen stood up again and saluted. Then he took out a booklet from his wide sleeve and presented it. I've checked it and found these things. Uncle, please have a look. Durong took a step forward, took the booklet from Chu Liuchen's hand, presented it to the emperor, and opened it. The emperor read 10 lines at a glance. The more he read, the more serious his face became. When he finished reading, he thought about it from the beginning and asked, Do you think there's something wrong? I think there's something wrong. Chu Luchen said, Uncle, don't you think so? Some things have passed for so many years, but they still can't be found out. The emperor fell silent. A lot of things had happened recently. After investigating, it seemed that nothing could be found in the end. This time, the maple leaf painting that was sent to the Empress Dowager before, and the matter between Chu Luiwei and Chu Liuzhou, could not be investigated further, so it was left unsettled in the end. With so many things piled up, how could there really be nothing wrong? There could only be one accident. If there was another accident, it was not an accident. His son might be involved in it. What about Prince Ching? The matter of the Jiangs might be related to Prince Ching. What about the previous things? He had suspected that some things had something to do with the Empress. Now he thought of it, besides the Empress, was it impossible for Prince Ching? Thinking of this, many things came together. Some things that did not make sense and could not be investigated suddenly seemed to find the reason. His brother, Prince Cheng, was indeed very suspicious. Back then he had found it strange. Why was he so intent on becoming a monk and becoming a monk? He didn't really want to become one. He just wanted to distract himself from it. The saying "it's dark under the light" was exactly what he was seeing. After such a big thing happened in the Ministry of Justice, Prime Minister Zhang called everyone present at that time over and interrogated them. Everyone who had contact with the Jiangs came over, including Wen Shiqi. Many people were anxious. Only those in the Ministry of Justice would really understand the horror of being involved in such a thing. Wen Shiqi sat calmly in the middle of the crowd. When Zhang Xiang asked him, he repeated everything without any deviation or subjective thoughts. He said it according to what he saw or heard, and then wrote it down. Prime Minister Zhang was very satisfied. After listening to this, he asked him to cooperate with the investigation while the others asked questions again and again. Only when it was very late did he let some of the related people go home. With great difficulty, he was finally released. Everyone went back to their own homes. The sky was already dark. One of the low-ranking officials also followed the crowd out. After that, he separated from the rest of the crowd. After passing through a few streets, he walked into a long alley. Once he passed through this alley, he would be back home. The alley was very long and there was a dark part in the middle. When the petty official walked here, he was suddenly hit heavily on the head. He blacked out and immediately fainted. Someone came from the dark alley and reached out to pick up the petty official. Suddenly, he was hit behind the ear. His body went limp and he silently fainted at the place where the petty official had fainted before. The petty official was taken away. He didn't go through this alley. He turned around and went to a very ordinary carriage at the entrance of the alley and disappeared into the night. Before long, another man in black came over. Seeing the man who had fainted on the ground, he went up and knocked him out with 2 slaps. "Where is he?" the man who came later asked in a low voice. "He was here just now. I knocked him out." The man in front jumped up and touched the back of his head angrily. "Someone attacked us from behind and took him away. Chase him," the man behind shouted. If this man fell into the hands of someone with evil intentions, it would be a big disaster. They originally wanted to kill this man, but they didn't expect that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. They failed. These 2 were not the only ones who came. There were a few others around them. They did not know what had happened in the alley, so they did not suspect anything. However, when they heard that something had happened in the alley, they immediately thought of the extremely ordinary carriage. They didn't see the person who got on the carriage, but when the carriage left, someone saw it. Went to Commandery Prince Ching's mansion? Prince Chung looked at the guard in black in front of him coldly and asked, "Yes, I was a little late. Our men failed and didn't see the person who was taken away. They only said that they saw a carriage pass by and stop at the entrance of the alley, blocking the way. Then the carriage left. Because something happened in the alley, our men paid special attention to the carriage. Later, when they inquired about it, they said that after several circles, the carriage stopped at the back door of Commandery Prince Ching's mansion. The person inside entered Commandery Prince Ching's mansion and then the carriage stopped there." The guard in black said in detail. It took them a long time to find the carriage, but they also found many flaws. They were sure that the person was from Commandery Prince Ching's mansion. Why did the carriage of Commandery Prince Ching's mansion stop outside the back door? Where is the coachman? Prince Ching thought for a while and asked. Maybe it's inconvenient. In this way, even if someone found it, they wouldn't think that the carriage belonged to Commandery Prince Ching's mansion. When I went down to see, the coachman was not there. The guard in black said. Instead of directly entering Commandery Prince Ching's mansion, he could only confuse people with the false impression that the person might be from Commandery Prince Ching's mansion. This was the best way to avoid others' suspicion, just like how he could avoid the surveillance of his brother by staying in the temple. Prince Ching felt that it was very reasonable and sneered, "Chu Ching, who came from nowhere, dares to covet this position? He doesn't know whether he is qualified or not." The guard did not dare to answer and could only lower his head. "Go to Commandery Prince Ching's mansion and set it on fire," Prince Ching said casually. He really didn't take Chu Ching seriously, but if Chu Ching wanted to help him, he would definitely teach him a lesson. "When the fire starts, I'll find this person while helping Commandery Prince Ching's mansion put out the fire." This petty official was the key. Prince Ching didn't want Chu Ching to ruin his plan. At the moment, the most important thing was to find the person and kill him directly. "Your Highness, won't this make the matter worse?" the guard said uneasily. If the fire was lit in the middle of the night, everyone in the capital city would see it. It was not appropriate. "It doesn't matter. Chu Ching will only be afraid if the matter is made worse. No matter what his purpose is, he must want to find that person and kill him," Prince Cheng said indifferently. Chu Ching had never reached the position of his opponent, so he looked down on him. "Yes, I understand," the guard answered and left. Seeing that it was almost time, he immediately arranged for someone to go out. Prince Ching didn't wait for the result. After washing up, he went to bed. It was not a big deal to deal with Chu Ching. Even if Chu Ching's Commandery Prince Ching's mansion was burned down, so what? Prince Ching thought that he had seen through Chu Ching and felt that Chu Ching was not a big deal at all, but the result surprised him. Commander Prince Qing's mansion was on fire. The fire was very fierce and lasted for half a day. In the dark, people could see very far away. Many people were alarmed. Not only the servants of Commander Prince Qing's mansion, but also the people around Commander Prince Qing's mansion woke up and came to help water the fire. Commander Prince Qing's mansion was newly granted by the emperor. Compared with other princes' mansions, it was not at the same level at all. It did not occupy a large area, and there were some other mansions around it. This area was not quiet, and there were many people coming and going. In fact, Chu Qing was not satisfied with this place, but since it was granted by the emperor, he had to live in it. Anyway, he did not want to live here, so he could only live here temporarily. The outside of the mansion looked inconspicuous, but the security measures inside the mansion were actually very good. There were many guards in the dark. Because the place was small, the surveillance was even tighter. When the fire started, some guards went to put out the fire, and some guards were lying in ambush in the dark to check the neighbors who came to help. Most of the neighbors had no problem, and they really came to put out the fire. But some of them quietly rushed into the front yard and backyard of Commander Prince Qing's mansion and took off the clothes of ordinary people outside. These people were all dressed in black. At first glance, it was obvious that they were not ordinary guards. Immediately, someone reported it to Chu Qing. Chu Qing was furious. He carefully hid his strength and made himself look inconspicuous. Now, who wanted to harm him? How could they do such a thing? Needless to say, the fire must be set by those people on purpose. They wanted to find something or someone in his mansion. There were many secrets in his mansion, so how could he let others see them? He ordered his guards to kill the black-clothed men directly when they saw them. There was no need to show mercy. They should just treat them as bandits and kill them. In the dark, no one knew who they were. Since Chu Qing gave this order, his guards immediately took action. Prince Cheng's men thought that no one would know about it, so they carefully searched for the low-ranking official of the Ministry of Justice. However, they did not expect that they had already been targeted. Many people screamed in the dark and died immediately. The fire was very big and there were many people putting out the fire. There was a lot of noise and everyone was anxious to put out the fire. The screams coming from the depths of the mansion did not attract people's attention at all. Several guards of Prince Cheng's mansion died, but no one noticed it. Later, the leader of the guards reacted the fastest. When he saw a sword coming from the dark, he quickly jumped to the roof and fought with the hidden guards of Commander Prince Qing's mansion. From the dark to the light, several other pairs of guards appeared. Many people who were putting out the fire saw them and screamed in fear. One problem had not been solved yet, but another one. Was someone going to attack Commander Prince Qing? The scene was in a mess. The capital governor's men finally appeared. A large group of officers and soldiers rushed in. Half of them went to help put out the fire, and the other half rushed into the mansion to catch the guards who were fighting fiercely. In the fire, blood splashed, limbs were broken, and screams were heard. At this moment, Commander Prince Qing's mansion was almost a ghost hell on earth. End of this chapter. Chapter 1207. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. The fire in Commander Prince Qing's mansion had been put out, but Chu Qing was only slightly injured, which was not very serious. He suffered such an undeserved disaster inexplicably. He was so angry that he overturned a table with hatred. He glared at the guard in front of him and said, "What the hell is going on? Who did it?" "Your Highness, it happened inexplicably. I don't know what's going on either. Those people hid among the people who put out the fire and wore ordinary clothes. When they entered the mansion, they took off their clothes and searched the rooms one by one. It seemed that they were looking for something. They must have come for our mansion." The guard reported cautiously. "Did they come for our mansion? Did they come for me?" Chu Qing's face turned livid. His own secret was shameful. Who suspected him? Thinking of this, his face darkened. Who found out my secret? The Emperor? It's impossible. If it's the Emperor, he would have taken action directly instead of secretly investigating. If it's not the emperor, it must be Prince Yu, Prince Zhou, Prince Chen, Prince Exin, and Prince Cheng. Of course, it's also possible Prime Minister Zhang and Prime Minister Wen are old foxes. Who knows what tricks they will play? But one thing is for sure. Someone must have secretly suspected me. That's why they did this. Go and find out who is related to it. Chu Qing gnashed his teeth and said, he had endured hardships for so many years, not for a mere commandery Prince Qing. At this time, the time was not ripe. He would eliminate any possibility of exposing himself. Yes, Your Highness. The guard took the order and left. It became quiet in the study. Chu Qing thought carefully about what went wrong and what made people suspect him. Since he appeared in front of everyone, he had always been weak. Compared with those people, he was not eye-catching at all. How could someone think of him? Did he expose himself? Check the people in the mansion to see if there are spies among the new people. A beautiful middle-aged woman came out from behind the screen. Beside him, his expression was equally grim. She had a beautiful face. Even though she looked old, one could still see the charm of her youth. She must have been a rare beauty. Her hair was tied up with a hairpin. It was not gorgeous. Compared to other women, this woman's hair was a bit too short. It looked a bit strange. At most, it reached her shoulders. Mother. Chu Qing stood up and said. The old princess of Commandery, Prince Qing, nodded, walked over, and sat down. She frowned. At first glance, she looked very beautiful, but at a closer look, she looked a little old. Chu Qing was not old, and she was the old princess of Commandery, Prince Qing. She should not be so old, but in the past few years in the Yuhui nunnery, she had racked her brains and spent a lot of effort, making her look older than her peers. However, since the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing came out of the Yuhui nunnery, she basically did not receive guests and had been staying in the mansion. She said that her hair was too short and it was difficult for her to meet people, so she refused all the invitations. At first, some people had invited her, but she repeatedly refused. Gradually, no one invited her. Originally, they just wanted to find out Chu Qing's background for the sake of Chu Qing. Since the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing did not appreciate it, the matter was left unsettled. Everyone thought that the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing must be quiet because she had lived in the Yuhui nunnery for a long time. In addition, her hair was short, so she was not dignified. It was normal for her not to receive guests. No one thought that the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing was unusual. She was willing to meet guests just because she wanted to live in seclusion. She did not want to arouse others' suspicion, nor did she want others to find out Chu Qing's background. What men could not find out, sometimes it was easier for women to find out when they were chatting. Mother, do you think that there are spies in the new people in the mansion? Chu Qing frowned, picked up the cup in front of him, and drank it up. Most of your former people have been examined. Basically, it is impossible for anyone to betray you. For so many years, you have been safe and sound. It can be seen that these people are reliable. But recently, some new people have entered the mansion, and these people are very suspicious. The old madam of Commandery Prince Qing said coldly. Mother, don't worry. I will find out them one by one. Chu Qing nodded. This matter really had to be investigated carefully. The first one to be investigated is Xiao Jie. The old princess of Commandery Prince Qing squinted at Chu Qing and said, Xiao Jie? I don't think she will she? Chu Qing hesitated for a moment. Before Xiao Jie entered the mansion, he did not like her very much and even hated her. But after she entered the Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, Xiao Jie had always flattered him. There was no decent female master in his mansion now, and the old princess did not care about such a trivial matter. Xiao Jie seemed very considerate. There were also other women in Chu Qing's mansion, but how could these women compare with Xiao Jie? Xiao Jie's appearance was inferior among the four sisters of Marquis Xing's mansion, but compared with other women, her appearance was still excellent. In addition, she was careful to flatter Chu Qing and wholeheartedly flattered him. She also had good etiquette in her behavior, which made Chu Qing very satisfied and even liked her a little. This was also the feeling of hesitation in Chu Qing's heart. He did not think there was anything wrong with Xiao Jie. Qing, don't forget that Xiao Jie did not want to marry you before. Can you guarantee that she will treat you wholeheartedly now? The old princess said unhappily. Mother, Xiao Jing did a bad job before. He deliberately made Xiao Jie have a bad impression of me, so Xiao Jie did not want to enter my mansion. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, it will be fine. Mother, you have also seen that Xiao Jie entered the mansion. She should have done a good job, right? Chu Qing waved his hand indifferently and said, Qing, if a daughter wants to achieve her goal, how can she not compromise? Didn't you do the same back then? You almost made the former empress fall from the throne. If the former empress hadn't died early, I might have become the empress at that time. But in fact, the old princess twitched the corner of her mouth and said indifferently, Xiao Jie is Xiao Jing's daughter, so she is destined not to be on the same side as us. Xiao Jing has a close relationship with Prince Cheng, and Xiao Yanru also had an ambiguous relationship with Prince Yu and Prince Zhou. Marquis Xing's mansion will not stand on our side. Xiao Jie is just a daughter of a concubine. If Xiao Jing asks her to do something, how can she not do it? Her words made Chu Qing fall silent. The corners of his eyes twitched twice, and his eyes darkened. His original firmness became hesitant. Although he felt that Xiao Jie was devoted to him now and cared about his life in the past, even more than his mother, he trusted the old princess most. Thinking of Xiao Jie's identity, Xiao Jing's secret actions, and the little things about Xiao Jie that he had almost forgotten in the past, he nodded hard and said, Mother, don't worry. I will check on Xiao Jie. It would be best if she is fine. If something happens to her, a trace of gloom flashed across Chu Qing's eyes. Xiao Jie was just a daughter of a concubine abandoned by Marquis Xing's mansion. Life was not easy. Old princess was quite satisfied with Chu Qing's words. She nodded and looked a little better. You are going to marry a princess soon. Even if Xiao Jie is fine, you don't have to dote on her too much. Qiui is your princess, and she is also loyal to you. Speaking of Emo Qiui, Chu Qing fell silent again. There was no doubt about Emo Qiui's loyalty. Not only Emo Qiui, but also Wei Dehai, who was behind Emo Qiui, was loyal to him. However, as a woman, Emo Qiui was not as beautiful as Xiao Jie at all, and she was not as charming as Xiao Jie. So Chu Qing actually didn't like her. This was also one of the most important reasons why he acquiesced to Princess Yuyan's marriage at that time. Qiui is not good-looking, but she is the most suitable princess. When you ascend to the throne in the future, you can have all kinds of women. You can choose any beautiful woman in the world. Old princess knew what Chu Qing meant at a glance. She smiled slightly and comforted him softly. Xiao Wanru's figure inexplicably appeared in Chu Qing's mind. She was extremely beautiful and exquisite. Was this the woman he wanted? At the thought of this, he became excited. When he ascended to the throne, such a peerless beauty could also be his. Mother, don't worry. I know what to do. Chu Qing nodded. Old princess was very satisfied. She stood up and left. The study was Chu Qing's office, so it was not convenient for her to come here often. The old maids and maids around old princess were guarding outside the courtyard. Seeing old princess come out, they hurriedly stepped forward to salute her and then surrounded her to leave. After taking a few steps, they saw two people coming in front of them. One of them was carrying a lantern, and the other was carrying a food basket. The one walking in front was Xiao Jie. The two servants happened to meet. Xiao Jie hurriedly stepped forward to salute and said, Greetings, old princess. Old princess stood still and looked Xiao Jie up and down with a trace of disgust in her eyes. She didn't like Xiao Jie. If it weren't for her son's preference for this woman, she would have taken action long ago. If Xiao Jing's daughter stayed by his side, she would be a scourge. What are you doing here? Old princess said coldly. Xiao Jie took a step back and pointed to the food basket in the hands of the maid behind her and said, I'm going to see Prince and bring supper to Prince. Such a big thing has happened in the mansion. Qing is not in the mood for supper at this time. You can go back. Old princess waved her hand as if she was driving something dirty away. Xiao Jie was very aggrieved. She was ashamed and angry, but she didn't dare to say anything. Since she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, old princess had disliked her very much. From time to time, she called her over to torture her, but she didn't dare to say anything. Yes. Xiao Jie? Said softly. After bowing to old princess, she turned around and wanted to leave. Wait a minute. Old princess suddenly said. Xiao Jie had to stop. Come with me. Such a big thing has happened. I'm also frightened and can't sleep for a while. Come and massage my legs for me. Old princess said. Xiao Jie was so angry that she squeezed her hands hard and suppressed the anger in her heart. There were so many servants in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, but old princess didn't let the servants serve her, but preferred her to serve her. She couldn't swallow this anger. But she had to swallow it. Xiao Jie was clear about her identity. As soon as she entered the mansion, old princess found an excuse to beat her severely. Since then, Xiao Jie was very clear about her identity in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion and tried very hard to please Chu Qing. End of this chapter. Chapter 1208. 1 second. Remember, love to read divided by 5,200 will provide you with exciting novels to read. Update the latest chapter on the Crown Princess's medical skills as soon as possible. The minor official of the Ministry of Justice had disappeared in a small alley. At that time, a carriage had entered that area and then stopped at the back door of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. At that time, someone had also seen someone else appear in the alley. That night, Commandery Prince Qing's mansion was on fire and men in black invaded. Many people saw that Commandery Prince Qing was injured. Early in the morning, Chu Qing knelt in the main hall and cried to the emperor. He said that he didn't know who he had offended to actually send so many people to assassinate him and asked the emperor to give him justice. The emperor was furious. He ordered the Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Court to investigate this case together. Prime Minister Zhang and Prime Minister Wen were also reprimanded. The officials of the 6 ministries shrank their necks like a flock of quails, afraid that the emperor would call their names. Standing in front of the grading platform, Chu Luiyue also frowned. It happened so abruptly that he didn't know it before. He couldn't help guessing who did it. He glanced sideways at Chu Liuzhou and thought that it might be Chu Liuzhou who did such a reckless thing. Looking at Chu Luchen, who was so ruthless, it might be Chu Luchen. As for Chu Liuxin, it was unlikely, but it could not be guaranteed that it was absolutely impossible. Concubine Ming was not a good person either. Of course, Prince Cheng was the most suspicious one. Chu Luiyue found some clues and felt that it was very likely that Prince Cheng was the one. Many people had the same idea. For so many years, no one suspected Prince Cheng because they thought that he was really pure and had few desires. But now, many people found out something and felt that Prince Cheng was the most suspicious one. After all the civil and military officials in the Imperial court were scolded, the emperor ordered the Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Judiciary to solve the case quickly. After that, he mentioned the matter of the Jiang family. The matter of the Jiang family was not a trivial matter. Madame of Marquis Xing did not die in the Ministry of Justice for no reason. The officials of the Ministry of Justice could not absolve themselves from the guilt. Starting from the Minister of Justice, each and every one of them was fined their salaries. They immediately requested that they find out in the shortest possible time whether it was this Jiang foreign who had taken things too hard and committed suicide, or whether it was someone else who had acted in secret. The emperor did not mention that there was one less official in the Ministry of Justice. In fact, everyone thought that it was better to commit suicide for the Jiang family. The Ministry of Penalty was originally a place to maintain security. Now that a perfectly fine person went in and lost his life, it would cause panic in the capital. Hiding the matter of the minor official and finally reporting that he couldn't stand the provocation and committed suicide, this could be considered as the consensus of the high-ranking officials. This way, it was better for everyone. The emperor did not mention the matter of the low-ranking officials. Many people secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At least the emperor agreed with them. It was impossible to hide it from the emperor. Your Majesty, although Madame Jiang of Marquis Xing behaved improperly, she did not deserve to be sentenced to death. However, because of Princess Qin, she took things too hard and committed suicide. Princess Qin could not escape the responsibility. Your Majesty, please punish Princess Qin. Someone stood up from the ranks, knelt down in front of the emperor, and presented a book. This subject impeaches Prince Qin. As soon as he stepped forward, another imperial censor came out and took out a booklet. This official also impeaches Consort Qin. With someone taking the lead, more and more people stood up from the grading platform and presented their memorials. The eunuchs stepped forward, took the memorials one by one, and presented them to the emperor. Although these memorials were written in different words, they all meant the same thing. Princess Qin was vicious. She clearly knew that Xiao Baolin's death would bring great trouble to Madame Jiang of Marquis Xing. But she still provoked Madame Jiang, so that Madame Jiang talked nonsense like crazy and finally died in the Ministry of Justice because she couldn't stand the provocation. Everyone carefully avoided mentioning in the memorials. Prince Qin, Chu Luchen, was standing at the steps now. No one dared to stroke the tiger's whiskers lightly. They only mentioned Princess Qin and did not mention that Prince Qin had sent someone to the Ministry of Justice to pass the message and take Madame Jiang away. Princess Qin? The emperor's face was gloomy. Your Excellencies, do you mean that what Madame Jiang said before must be false? Marquis Xing's murder of his brother and sister-in-law is certainly not true? I wonder if you dare to guarantee this for Marquis Xing? Chu Luchen said lazily and walked to the front of the hall. His lips curved slightly, and his smile was full of mockery, but the mockery in his eyes was very clear. The hall suddenly became quiet. Madame Jiang said that some people knew that Xiao Jing killed his brother and sister-in-law, but some didn't. Those who knew deliberately concealed this, and some didn't take it seriously. Those who didn't know didn't understand the meaning of Chu Liuchen's words. But no matter whether they understood it or not, they knew that such a rash speech would inevitably make Prince Qin angry, who was not to be trifled with. Why doesn't anyone know about this? Chu Luchen raised his eyes and smiled disapprovingly. His handsome eyes slowly slid over the faces of the senior officials. Don't you know? Since you don't know, how dare you submit a memorial? The way to be an official is not hearsay or groundless evidence. His words dealt a heavy blow to everyone, especially those who had submitted the memorials. Although these people were not senior officials, since they dared to submit memorials to complain about Princess Qin, they also thought that it would alarm Prince Qin, so they were ready to be criticized by Prince Qin. But it didn't mean that the emperor would doubt their ability to be an official. An official surnamed Shi raised his head angrily and said, "Your Highness, that's what Madame Jiang said in order to drag Marquis Xing down." Does Madame Jiang hate Marquis Xing so much? Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and interrupted Magistrate Shi's words, asking him to change the topic. Xiao Baolin's death caused Madame Jiang's temperament to change greatly, and she heard that Marquis Xing wanted to bring a mistress into the mansion. She was so angry that she wanted to drag Marquis Xing down with her. Magistrate Shi had to continue Chu Liuchen's question. Madame Jiang hates Marquis Xing so much that she wants him dead. In order to kill him, she would rather make up such a story. It can be seen that Madame Jiang hates him very much. In this case, isn't Marquis Xing also hates Madame Jiang? From this point of view, isn't Marquis Xing more likely to want Madame Jiang dead? So, Madame Jiang is indeed dead. Chu Liuchen's expression was gentle, but his eyes were as cold as ice. He fixed his eyes on Magistrate Shi and said, "Of course, if this is true, Madame Jiang should die. Since Magistrate Shi has submitted this matter to the emperor, it can be seen that you should have a deep understanding of this matter. So, Magistrate Shi, tell me, is this true or false? If it is true, Marquis Xing's behavior is beyond reproach. How will Magistrate Shi deal with it at that time?" Even if Madame Jiang's words were false, Madame Jiang's actions meant that she and Xiao Jing were like fire and water. Madame Jiang wanted Xiao Jing dead, so how could Xiao Jing not have the same idea? He would definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. If this was true, it would be a bigger problem. Xiao Jing killed his brother and sister-in-law and took away his title. He couldn't deny it even if he died 100 times. This matter was investigated by Madame Jiang, who was close to Xiao Jing, and she even spread it out. Xiao Jing would definitely not let Madame Jiang go. No matter from which aspect, Madame Jiang's death might have something to do with Xiao Jing. There was silence in the main hall. Magistrate Shi's face was even flushed. He was so embarrassed that he couldn't say a word after being accused. "Uncle, please investigate it. In fact, the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua want justice. Madame Jiang's death is deeply doubtful, and it doesn't seem to be an ordinary suicide." After that, the fire in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion happened. Is there any connection between these two things? Or is it possible for them to be connected? Chu Luchen turned around, bowed to the emperor, who was high above, and said, "Could there be a connection between these two things?" Everyone was shocked at first, and then many people's faces changed. If these two things were really related, what did it mean? Were the princes and princes going to take action? The emperor frowned tightly. In fact, he didn't want to investigate too much about Madame Jiang's affairs. It would be better to treat Madame Jiang's death as a suicide. What happened to Chu Qing couldn't be hidden anymore, and it was a big deal. It was very inappropriate for such a thing to happen to Madame Jiang's family. If this was mentioned by other sons, the emperor would definitely reprimand them, but it was Chu Luchen who mentioned it. The emperor just frowned and said, "What Prince Chen said makes sense. Since we can't find out the truth about Madame Jiang's death for the time being, let the Ministry of Justice summon Xiao Jing to ask him." He meant that he agreed with Chu Luchen, and Xiao Jing also had to investigate it. Prime Minister Wen's eyes fell on Chu Luchen, and his eyes moved slightly. Standing in front of him, he could see clearly that the emperor clearly didn't want to get involved in Madame Jiang's affairs, so he wanted to turn it into a trivial matter. Prime Minister Wen had been an official for many years, and he had a good relationship with the emperor. He knew the emperor's temperament very well. Once the decision was made, it would basically not be changed. However, because the person in front of him was Prince Chen, the emperor easily changed his mind and calmly pushed the matter over. Did the emperor treat Prince Chen better than his own son? How could there be love for no reason in this world, let alone the emperor's family? Could it be? Prime Minister Wen secretly glanced at Chu Liuchen's face and had some speculations in his heart. Before he was sure, he wouldn't act rashly. Prime Minister Zhang glanced at Chu Luchen and stood up to object, saying, "Your Majesty, the matter about Madame Jiang has basically been investigated. It has nothing to do with Marquis Xing. It's mainly because Madame Jiang couldn't think it through and hit the wall. Princess Chen didn't do much wrong in this matter, and Marquis Xing's mansion didn't inform her what she couldn't say. Even if she said something that irritated Madame Jiang, it's not a big deal." Prime Minister Zhang's words sounded very fair. He didn't say that Xiao Jing or Xiao Wenru was wrong, but only Madame Jiang. It was Madame Jiang who couldn't think it through, and it had nothing to do with others. Compared with the accusation against Princess Chen, his words were much milder and seemed to be really selfless. "Prime Minister Zhang, you're wrong. This matter is related to the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua. Since Madame Jiang mentioned it and then died, this matter is even more suspicious. If Marquis Xing is really innocent, he is naturally not afraid of investigation. However, the Ministry of Justice may need more people to guard. If something happens to Marquis Xing again, it will be hard to explain. At that time, I may be wrongly accused." Chu Luchen said lazily. He said it casually with a sense of evil and presumptuous. Even Prime Minister Zhang, who was astute, was a little angry at this moment. Prince Chen's words really made people dislike him. His words were so tricky that he couldn't answer for a moment. He could only turn to the emperor and let the emperor make a decision. Prime Minister Zhang understood that if he said more at this time, he might arouse the emperor's suspicion. Prince Chen was too difficult to deal with. End of this chapter. Chapter 1209. Your Majesty, please thoroughly investigate Marquis Xing. Prime Minister Wen came out from the stairs, bowed to the emperor, and said seriously, "Your Majesty, please thoroughly investigate Marquis Xing. Your Majesty, please thoroughly investigate Marquis Xing." One after another, officials came out from the stairs and bowed to the emperor. If it was not true, they were not afraid of the investigation. If it was true, The consequences of this matter were too serious, and they must be severely punished. Your Majesty, this matter should indeed be investigated clearly. I'm stupid, Prime Minister Zhang said with a face full of shame. After saying this to the emperor, he bowed deeply to Chu Luchen and said, Prince Chen, I didn't pay attention to it before, so I neglected this point. Prime Minister Zhang, you're too polite. Chu Luchen smiled slightly and did not take it seriously. Father, we have to investigate Marquis Xing and Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. I remember that one of Marquis Xing's daughters has entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Marquis Xing and Commandery Prince Qing are father and son-in-law. Chu Liwei came out from the stairs and said. His words reminded the officials present, and they all looked at Chu Qing with suspicion in their eyes. The relationship between the Madam of Jiang, who had an accident in Marquis Xing's mansion, and the second miss who had entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion did not seem to be very good. It was impossible for a daughter of a concubine to have too much affection for a vicious official mother. First, the Madam of Jiang had an accident, and then it was led to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Was there a connection between them? Could it be that Commandery Prince Qing deliberately helped Marquis Xing in order to divert others' attention? Thinking about it in this way, it seemed possible. Chu Qing gritted his teeth secretly. Inexplicably, he turned from a victim to a possible colluder, and he had spent so much effort to put on a show. On the one hand, it meant that Xiao Jing was on his side, and on the other hand, it showed that he was ambitious and powerful. Otherwise, how could he create such a big trouble? Covering up the trivial matter of the Madam of Jiang with a big matter? Your Majesty, I don't have a good relationship with Marquis Xing. After Xiao Jie married into my mansion, she has no contact with Marquis Xing's mansion. She is just a daughter of a concubine, so it is inevitable that she is not close to the Jiang family in the past. The Jiang family is vicious and can't tolerate others, so she has raised her daughter of a concubine to be very timid and doesn't dare to see others at ordinary times. Chu Qing took a step forward and described Xiao Jie as a poor daughter of a concubine. He also said that it was true that Xiao Jie had a bad relationship with the Jiang family. After entering his Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she had never been to Marquis Xing's mansion, so it was impossible for her to have any relationship with Marquis Xing's mansion. Let's check it out first. The emperor fell silent for a moment and said in a cold voice. He had to make a long-term plan about this matter. He had to investigate it in secret. It was related to the former heir of Duke Xing. Others didn't know it, but he knew it. He had thought it was an accident. If it was not an accident, he really had to investigate it in order to make Xiao Jiang fair. The emperor stood up and walked inside. The eunuch shouted, "Court dismissed." All the officials had their own thoughts. After saying goodbye to each other, they walked out slowly. Chu Luchen still left late. Not only him, but Chu Liwei, Chu Liuzhou, and Chu Qing also left late. Even Prince Cheng, who came to the court today without saying anything, also walked very slowly. I heard that Uncle Cheng has a good relationship with Marquis Xing. Do you think it is possible for Marquis Xing to do such a heinous thing? Chu Liuzhou was the first to ask. He stopped, turned to Prince Cheng and asked with a smile, but his smile was a little cold. If Prince Cheng really did something in secret, it was very likely that Prince Cheng was involved in what had happened to him before. The more Chu Liuzhou thought about it, the more annoyed he became, and the smile on his face looked very fake. He had always thought that Prince Cheng was nothing special. He wanted to study Buddhism and become a monk, but it turned out that he might have misjudged him. His mother was right. Prince Cheng was ambitious. What do you mean, Prince Zhou? Prince Cheng smiled indifferently and looked kind. Doesn't Uncle Cheng know? I heard that Marquis Xing goes to talk to Uncle Cheng from time to time, even if Uncle Cheng lives in the temple outside the city. Chu Liuzhou snorted and said, I live outside the city. No matter who comes to see me, I will not refuse. Not only Marquis Xing, but also Prince Zhou, Prince Yu, and Commandery Prince Qing have come several times. Does this mean anything? Prince Qing raised his eyebrows and became unhappy. He said, if Prince Zhou suspects something, you can tell the emperor directly. Don't say something that doesn't make the emperor angry. Didn't the empress teach you that? Hearing the contempt in Prince Cheng's words when he mentioned the Empress, Chu Liuzhou was so angry that he almost lost his temper. He suppressed the last trace of self-control. If it weren't for his mother's accident, how could Prince Cheng say that? But now his mother sent him a message from the Imperial Palace, telling him to keep a low profile and not to make any more trouble. Second uncle, don't say that. We visit Uncle Cheng from time to time because Uncle Cheng is our elder. It's not a big deal, Chu Luiyue said with a smile. His words made Chu Liuzhou more annoyed. He disliked Chu Luiyue the most. He was the eldest son of lineal descent, but Chu Luiyue always thought that he had the power to compete with him because of his superior Chu Luiyue. He was the legitimate son of the Imperial Palace. Chu Luiyue was nothing. He snorted coldly and said nothing. He turned around and left. He really didn't want to say anything to Chu Luiyue, a hypocrite. Uncle Cheng, I heard what you said just now and felt that Uncle Cheng was suspicious, so I asked a few more questions. I hope Uncle Cheng won't blame me. Chu Luiyue smiled and bowed to Chu Liuzhou as if it was no surprise that he was too polite. His gentle and elegant appearance made several officials who saw him nod their heads continuously. Compared with the other princes, Prince Yu was the most courteous. Although he always looked cold, he was actually quite nice. It was easy to discuss and solve anything. Prince Yu, you're welcome. It's not a big deal, Prince Cheng said indifferently. When he was about to say something, he saw Chu Luchen pass between them proudly, as if he didn't see them talking at all. His face was cold without a trace of smile. His wide sleeves even brushed against the robes of the two people, causing them to involuntarily take a step back. Chu Luiyue clenched his hands so hard that the blue veins on his hands were exposed, but there was only a gentle smile on his face to hide the hatred and anger at the bottom of his eyes. Chu Luchen was nothing but the son of the former emperor. The former emperor had passed away, but his father still thought highly of him and said that he could also inherit the throne. How could this invalid be so arrogant? As a prince, he was not so arrogant, but Chu Luiyue was so arrogant. It was unreasonable for his father to be partial. His son was ordinary, but he treated this invalid as his own son. Chu Luiyue even suspected that he was not his father's son, but Chu Luchen. Although Prince Cheng was also forced to take a step back, he did not look stiff at all. His smile was a little more gentle and flexible than Chu Liuyue's. It was not a stiff smile. He took Chu Luchen away with a gentle look in his eyes and said, Prince Chen must be impatient with us talking about this kind of thing. He has always been in poor health, and he must be very annoyed by the quarrel. In his eyes, Prince Cheng's kind smile seemed to be really tolerant of Chu Luchen. Third brother doesn't seem to be in good health. After such a short time, he is not very comfortable. He needs to be well treated. Chu Luiyue nodded. Indeed, we should let the imperial physician in the palace diagnose and treat him again. He can't make any more mistakes. Prince Cheng nodded with a look of agreement. Chu Qing, who was standing behind them and blocked by them, only felt that the blue veins on his forehead were bulging. Why did these two people happen to stand in front of him when they were talking? He did not have the confidence to talk like Chu Luchen, so he could only wait quietly beside them. Seeing Chu Luchen go away, he was envious and jealous. They were all the sons of the former emperor. Why did he live such a sullen life and Chu Luchen could be so wanton? Was it because Chu Luchen had been raised by the emperor and the empress dowager? In this case, why didn't his mother think of sending him to the empress dowager and the emperor? He believed that his mother had the ability to do so. Was his mother too cautious, or had she miscalculated? He felt inexplicably depressed. If he could make the decision at that time, he must have gone to the palace early to accompany the empress dowager. At this time, he would not let Chu Luchen be the only one who was favored. Why haven't you left yet, Commander Prince Qing? Chu Luiyue seemed to see him and asked with a smile. Thinking of what happened last night, I slowed down for a while. Chu Qing smiled hypocritically and had to give a hypocritical explanation. He could not say that they blocked his way, and he could not ignore them like Chu Luchen. Commander Prince Qing, what happened in your mansion yesterday? The fire rose so high and burned many houses, right? What did those men in black want to do? Did they just want to burn a few rooms in Commander Prince Qing's mansion? Chu Luiyue asked in confusion. Well, maybe they wanted to assassinate me, Chu Liwei said vaguely. Until now, he did not know why such a thing happened. Assassinate you? Why did Commandery Prince Qing order people to assassinate him? Chu Liu asked. Chu Qing's face changed. These words did not sound good, as if they were mocking him. If he did nothing, no one would take a fancy to him. He was just an idle prince. But if he did something, what did he do to provoke people to attack him? Chu Qing looked at Chu Liwei in surprise. Could it be that the people last night were sent by Chu Liwei? I'm just an idle prince and usually have nothing to do. I really don't know why someone would assassinate me and make such a big scene. Chu Qing said vaguely and looked at the two people opposite him calmly. These two people were the most suspicious. It was certainly not a coincidence that the two of them left him here together. He did not believe in this kind of coincidence. Why had no one stopped him in the past? Commandery Prince Qing, think about it carefully. Is there anything in your mansion that people want to spy on? If there is, you'd better present it to the emperor as soon as possible, in case something happens again. Compared with Chu Liwei, Prince Qing really looked like an elder. After giving Chu Qing a few instructions, he left slowly. He did not mean to listen to Chu Liwei and Chu Qing's conversation carefully, nor did he pay attention to what was going on between them. It's my fault. Commandery Prince Qing, you'd better listen to Uncle Cheng and go back to the mansion to check it carefully. Chu Liwei said lightly and did not intend to stay any longer. Chu Qing was now the center of the storm. It was not a good thing to be too close to him, which was easy to attract others' attention. Chapter 12:10. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. Chu Qing was inexplicably scolded, but he still didn't know what they were talking about. In the end, a trace of gloominess flashed across his eyes as he watched the two people walking away slowly, talking and laughing. Both Chu Liwei and Prince Qing rejected him. It was obvious that he was the one who should inherit the throne the most. Why did they look down on him as if he were a beggar? One day, he would let them see who was the most honorable one, and who was the one who had the last laugh. When Chu Qing returned to the mansion, the officials of the Ministry of Justice were interrogating some servants in the mansion. The officials of the Ministry of Justice had informed him before. Seeing that the leader was Wen Shiqi, Chu Qing composed himself, walked over with a smile, and cupped his hands to him. Your Excellency Wen. Greetings, Your Highness. Wen Shiqi stood up and bowed to him. Your Excellency Wen, have you found anything? Chu Qing asked politely. In the past, he basically didn't have any contact with this kind of noble child in the capital city. Now he had such a rare opportunity to get close to him. They seemed to be looking for something. Is there anything in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion that's unsightly? Wen Shiqi pointed to the files that had been examined just now and said. The black-clad man appeared suddenly and searched every room. It was unknown whether he was looking for someone or something. Of course, he might be looking for Commandery Prince Qing. If he wanted to assassinate Commandery Prince Qing, he had to find him. Wen Shiqi didn't think it was credible. Since he had made such a big effort, he should have some knowledge of Chu Qing's whereabouts. If he searched every room, it would take him a long time. Looking at the places that the black-clad man had searched, he found that many of them were just servants' rooms, which were just a little farther away. It was a very strange way of searching. It didn't seem that he was looking for the master's house. Instead, he seemed to be looking for something casually. What was hidden by Chu Qing? How could it appear in a remote place? Did it have something to do with the minor official that the Ministry of Justice had lost? This prince's residence is only this small. Usually, no one comes here. The people in this residence are also simple. If there was something, they would have found it long ago. Now that they have found it, it can be seen that it is not something important, nor does it look like they are looking for something. This prince feels that they want to assassinate this prince. Chu Qing frowned and said, it was the best way to clear himself that he was assassinated. Your Highness thinks it's an assassination? Wen Shiqi raised his eyebrows and asked. There was a light brown color in his eyes, which was as light as colored glass, which made his handsome face look a little inscrutable and cold. Chu Qing couldn't figure out what Shichi meant, so he could only smile and say with uncertainty, "In fact, I don't know. It's true that those people rushed into my prince's mansion. Speaking of which, I'm still confused. Could those men in black assassinate my mother and Xiaojie?" He would insist that this was an assassination, no matter who it was. "Can I see second Miss Xiao?" Shichi asked after a moment of silence. After Xiaojie entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, her identity was still unknown. Shichi didn't know how to address her for a while, so he called her by her first name. "Should I ask Xiaojie about this?" Chu Qing frowned. If possible, he didn't want to get Xiaojie involved. The matter of the Jiang family was right in front of him, and Xiaojie was also a great suspect. "I want to ask her something. If it's convenient for you, Commandery Prince Qing, you can listen by the side," Shichi said with a smile. "Well, okay." Chu Qing had to agree and waved his hand to ask someone to summon Xiaojie. After a while, Xiaojie came over behind a servant girl. Looking at Xiaojie, who was quietly lowering her head in front of him, a trace of darkness flashed across Shichi's eyes. Compared with the way she used to behave, Xiaojie was much more obedient. When she was in Marquis Xing's mansion, she had never been so obedient. "Greetings, Your Excellency." Chu Qing asked Xiaojie come forward and salute him. Xiaojie obediently took 2 steps forward, bowed sideways respectfully, and then stood aside with her head lowered. "Second Miss Xiao, where were you yesterday?" Shichi asked. The low-ranking official who was taking notes hurriedly picked up his pen. "I've been in the mansion all the time and didn't even go out." Xiaojie said in a low voice. Her voice was very soft and timid, as if she didn't even dare to raise her voice. Chu Qing glanced at her unhappily but didn't answer directly. When Shichi asked Xiaojie about it, it was inappropriate for him to say anything. "What were you doing when the fire broke out?" Shichi asked. "I didn't know when the fire broke out. I was doing some needlework and was a little far away." Xiaojie said hesitantly. "Didn't you hear anything?" Shichi said with a serious face. "Yes, but it was not very obvious." Xiaojie said and looked at Chu Qing timidly, looking very uneasy. "When did you know that there was an accident, second Miss Xiao?" Shichi asked again. "Later, when the fire broke out, someone tried to assassinate our master. I was very scared, so I hid with my servant girl. Later, our master sent someone to tell me that it was okay." Xiaojie lowered her head. "Second Miss Xiao, you have been hiding and didn't come out to see what was going on?" "I've never encountered that kind of situation. I was very scared, so I hid." Xiaojie shook her head, looking frightened. "Second Miss Xiao, I heard that you are helping the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing manage the backyard. Did you find anything in the past?" Shichi no longer stared at Xiaojie and asked about the fire. He changed the topic. Xiaojie suddenly raised her head and said, "Your Excellency, you are mistaken. I'm not in charge of the backyard." "If you're not in charge of the backyard, is it Commandery Prince Qing himself?" Shichi asked curiously. Xiaojie still wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Chu Qing, who looked displeased. "It's true that Jifhe is in charge of the backyard, but she doesn't have a proper name, so please don't spread it out, Your Excellency." He meant that what Xiaojie said just now was an excuse. "It's my negligence. I thought that since Commandery Prince Qing is in charge of the affairs of the inner court, the old princess, who has been quiet for many years, would not be willing to meddle in such trivial matters. I didn't expect that second Miss Xiao's current identity is not the real mistress of the inner court." Shichi nodded in enlightenment and cupped his hands to Chu Qing to apologize. Xiaojie's face turned red and then turned pale. Her identity in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion was also very embarrassing at the moment. Given her identity, she was supposed to be a concubine, and Chu Qing had said so at the beginning. But in fact, after she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she had been unclear about her identity. It was said that she had not married the princess yet, so she didn't mention her identity for the time being. Xiaojie had wanted to marry this person and that person, which made Chu Qing very angry and he didn't dare to mention it. Xiao Jing was also unwilling to interfere in Xiao Jie's affairs, so that Xiao Jie had no one to back her up. Especially when she had just entered the mansion a few days ago, she heard that the old princess had asked the servants to call her second Miss Xiao. She was like an unmarried woman. Xiao Jie called Marquis Xing's mansion by the name of an unmarried woman, but she did what a married woman should do. She humiliated Marquis Xing's mansion greatly, but Xiao Jie had to put up with it. She even didn't dare to let others know and tried hard to please Chu Qing and the old princess. The old princess was mean, but Chu Qing's attitude gradually improved under her flattery, and he also asked the people around him to call her concubine Xiao. But in front of the old princess, a few influential people around the old princess still didn't give her face and still called her second Miss Xiao, which was almost a slap in the face. But even if it was a slap in the face, Xiao Jie had to put up with it. She used to think that the old princess was a quiet and peaceful person. When she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she realized that she had just come out of a wolf's den and entered a tiger's den. The old princess of Commandery Prince Qing was definitely not the kind of gentlewoman who had lived in the Yuhui nunnery for a long time and became peaceful. This old princess was even worse than Madame Jiang. Xiao Jie had suffered a lot and been beaten. In front of the old princess, she didn't dare to say a word or interrupt. This was also the reason why she hurriedly raised her head when she heard Wen Shiqi say that she and the old princess were in charge of the backyard together. The old princess was in charge of everything in the backyard. As an insignificant concubine, she didn't dare to go against her, let alone compare with her. The old princess was obviously a strong woman who liked to be in charge. She forcefully controlled everything in the mansion. It was said that most of the outer court was under her control, so Chu Qing didn't actually control much. Xiao Jie was very afraid of the old princess and was very afraid that she would get angry. She just carefully flattered Chu Qing and wanted him to protect her. Recently, it had been effective. With Chu Qing's help, the old princess still didn't like her, but she was not as strict as before. She thought that she had won Chu Qing's heart finally. Now when she heard Chu Qing say that she was not in the right position, she felt bitter and her eyes turned red. She hurriedly lowered her head, afraid that Wen Shiqi would see the tears in her eyes. As the daughter of Duke Xing, she had looked down on many misses, but now she had fallen into such a situation. She felt that one day she would die in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion and die here without knowing why. She had also met Miss Imo, who was going to marry into the mansion. She was not easy to get along with. When she came here last time, she took the opportunity to slap her twice. The old princess didn't say anything when she was present. Only Chu Qing frowned unhappily, but he just frowned and reprimanded her, asking her to apologize to Miss Imo. Xiao Jie was not reconciled to the fact that a minor official's daughter had climbed over her head. She was also very resentful. She tightened her handkerchief as if it was her mind that was being tightened. Taking advantage of Chu Qing's blind spot, she raised her eyes and stole a few glances at Wen Shiqi. She happened to meet Wen Shiqi's eyes, and then calmly raised her hand to point in that direction. There was an obviously tall tree in that direction, but it was a little far from here. Your Excellency, you're too polite. If there's nothing else, please let Jie go back. After all, there are so many people here. Chu Qing looked at the people of the Ministry of Justice around and said, I'm really sorry. Please let second Miss Xiao go back. Wen Shiqi nodded and said politely, Second Miss Xiao back. Chu Qing ordered the servant girl beside him. The servant girl did not dare to hesitate and left with Xiao Jie. Except for Wen Shiqi, no one noticed that Xiao Jie bit the corner of her mouth hard when Chu Qing said, Second Miss Xiao. Even now, she was still the second Miss Xiao, and her eyebrows were dyed with sorrow and hatred. Mobile users, please browse to get a better reading experience. Chapter 12:11. This was a remote corner of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. In the past, few people came here. There used to be a side door here. Later, old princess felt unsafe and asked someone to lock it, so no one came here anymore. The officials of the Ministry of Justice came to the mansion to investigate the case today and went to many places. They also checked this place, but they didn't find anything before, so they passed. After the investigation, they asked someone to take them to Wenshichi for interrogation. Chu Qing came. Wenshichi said that there were some places that were not investigated clearly, so he asked his deputy to check again. Chu Qing was afraid that the investigation was not clear, so he personally followed his deputy to lead the way. So he checked this place again. Now the other officials of the Ministry of Justice followed Chu Qing to other places. After the second investigation, it became even quieter. Wenshichi only appeared at the gate of the courtyard with a young servant. He looked at a tall tree at the gate with his hands behind his back. He could also see this tree from the place where he had been interrogated before. He had walked by once before and felt that this tree was a little tall, so he took a few more glances at it. He didn't expect that Xiao Jie would ask him to come here. The door was ajar. It should have been ajar after the investigation just now. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. A little servant girl opened her eyes. When she saw Wenshichi, her face lit up. She hurriedly pushed the door open and came over. She bowed to Wenshichi and said, "Third young master Wen." Wenshichi looked at her and recognized that she was Liu Xiang, the servant girl of Marquis Xing's dowry. She was not the servant girl who had accompanied Xiao Jie here just now. "Where's your miss?" Wenshichi asked calmly. "My miss is inside. Third young master Wen, please." Liu Xiang looked around carefully and said in a low voice. Wenshichi stepped into the deserted courtyard. It could be seen that no one lived here. He had checked it before. Now Xiao Jie was standing in this deserted courtyard. When she saw Wenshichi coming over, she suddenly lifted her skirt and took a few steps forward. Then she knelt down heavily and said, "Third young master Wen, please save me." "Second Miss Xiao, what do you mean?" Wenshichi stopped and looked at Xiao Jie and asked. "Third young master Wen, please save me. I won't survive if I stay here any longer." Xiao Jie suddenly burst into tears. She had some delusions about Chu Qing before, but after hearing Chu Qing's words just now, she made up her mind and looked at Wenshichi imploringly. "Second Miss Xiao, you are now Commandery Prince Qing's concubine. If there's nothing else, I'd better leave," Wenshichi said coldly and turned to leave. Xiao Jie didn't expect that Wenshichi would leave without saying anything. Feeling anxious, she hurriedly said, "Third young master Wen, I know where that person was yesterday." Wenshichi stopped and asked, "Do you know?" "Yes, as long as you can take me out of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, I will tell you where this person is," Xiao Jie said. Wenshichi glanced at Xiao Jie in silence, as if he was judging whether what she said was true. "Third young master Wen, I really saw it. A person was sent in. He is in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. That person is now. Xiao Jie didn't continue and just looked at Wenshichi imploringly. "Third young master Wen, please save me. As long as you take me out, I will tell you everything I know." "You saw it?" Wenshichi raised his eyebrows. "Yes, I saw it. I really saw it. It's true." Xiao Jie was afraid that Wenshichi wouldn't believe her, so she said anxiously. Wenshichi took a deep look at her and said slowly in a low voice, "Second Miss Xiao, no matter for what purpose you want to leave Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, I can only say that I can't help you. Although you don't have a status in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion for the time being, you will be a concubine after all. So many things have happened in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, and now another concubine has escaped. It will be difficult for the Ministry of Justice to explain to them, so I can't take you out. Third young master Wen, I will die if I stay here. Old princess is a vicious woman. Mo Chioi, who is going to marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, is also a vicious woman. They will kill me." Hearing that Wenshichi could not help her, Xiao Jie cried. Due to his panic, his words were incoherent and disjointed. Wenshichi's heart skipped a beat. "Old princess doesn't treat you well? Or Commandery Prince Qing, who is going to marry into Commandery Prince Qing, doesn't treat you well? With your identity, it's normal that Commandery Prince Qing doesn't like you. Since you are a concubine, can't you bear such grievances?" Wen Shiqi said slowly. It was obvious that he didn't take it seriously, as if he thought Xiao Jie's words were nonsense. Xiao Jie shook her head fiercely, and her face turned red as if she had been greatly wronged. It's not like that, third young Master Wen. It's not like that. That woman is in cahoots with old princess. They are in cahoots with each other. They come from time to time, and sometimes they come very late. After they come, they discuss things. The old princess is very strict. They must be hiding something from others. Thinking of the time when she went to see old princess, she saw old princess's servants guarding outside the gate of the courtyard from a distance. They were almost on guard every 5 steps. Xiao Jie knew that she couldn't get close to them, so she deliberately kept an eye on them. Later, she saw Mo Chui leave, and old princess even sent her out. Xiao Jie had an intuition that there was something fishy going on. Fearing that she would be discovered, she hid behind a rockery and stayed still. After Mo Chui left, she sneaked back after a long time. After she went back, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. There was obviously a secret, and Mo Chui's identity was not simple. They are in cahoots? They are in cahoots. Old princess is very polite to Miss Mo. It doesn't seem like a daughter-in-law who is going to marry into the family. It doesn't seem like... Xiao Jie said repeatedly. She looked up at Wen Shiqi and said anxiously, "Third young Master Wen, please save me. For the sake of the fact that we grew up together, don't let me stay here anymore. They will kill me." "You want to leave?" Wen Shiqi asked with an ambiguous look in his eyes. "Yes, I want to leave. I can do anything as long as I can leave here." Xiao Jie nodded and said anxiously, "If old princess knows that I met you in private, I will definitely die. If you want to leave, you can send a message to Marquis Xing. He is your father, and it will be better for him to speak for you in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion." Wen Shiqi thought for a while and suggested, No, it's impossible. My father won't care about me, let alone at this time." Xiao Jie said desperately. She cried so hard, but she did not dare to make a sound. She could only hold her chin hard and choke with sobs. If Marquis Xing's mansion was useful, she would have gone to them long ago. If it was the previous Duke Xing's mansion, old princess would not dare to treat her like this without her saying anything. But now it was different. Marquis Xing's mansion had fallen, and she had nowhere to turn to. She could only turn to Wen Shiqi and make a deal with him with what had happened yesterday. She believed in Wen Shiqi's character. Even if he could not help her, he would not betray her, so she dared to take the risk. If someone else from the Ministry of Justice came here today, Xiao Jie would not dare to do such a thing so boldly. This matter was related to her life, so she did not dare to be careless. "Third young Master Wen, no one will care about my life now. Old Madam is like this, and so is my father. I heard that he has a beautiful daughter outside and wants to bring her into the mansion. With such a beautiful daughter, he can make her the daughter of lineal descent. He can send her anywhere he wants. How can he care about me, a daughter of non-lineal descent?" Xiao Jie cried and fell to the ground. She only told Chu Qing about Xiao Jing. Thinking that her father made a big fuss over a daughter of non-lineal descent and was determined to make her the daughter of lineal descent, while she, a daughter in the mansion, ended up like this, Xiao Jie was full of resentment. Although she was a daughter of non-lineal descent, she was a daughter of non-lineal descent. She was even worse than her. Why was she better than her? "Where is your aunt? You can turn to your aunt." Wen Shiqi suggested to her. "What's the use of my aunt? Even if she is smarter than other concubines, so what? She still has to please Madame of Jiang. Now that Madame of Jiang is dead, what else can she do? My father doesn't take her seriously. Even if she is dead now, my father won't take another look at her." Xiao Jie said. Thinking of her concubine, she couldn't stop crying. Her concubine had advised her not to listen to Xiao Yenru and not to marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Commandery Prince Qing didn't look like a good man, especially after that, he seemed to be unwilling to marry her. However, at that time, she thought that Commandery Prince Qing was a good match and wanted to marry into his mansion wholeheartedly. Later, because of the matter of Prince Ching, she had other thoughts. Now when she thought about it, she realized that it was her father who had these thoughts. She was originally a victim, but now she had become a fickle woman. She just went with the flow. Why should she be blamed for all the things? The reason why everyone in Commandery Prince Ching's mansion looked down on her was because of what she had done before. In fact, you still have a choice. When Shichi said hesitantly, "Please show me the way, third young master one." Hearing Wen Shichi's words, Xiao Jie knew that he had a way. Overjoyed, she wiped away her tears, kowtowed to Wen Shichi 3 times and said, "Third young master one, please show me the way. I'm at my wit's end." She thought for a long time, but couldn't find anyone who could help her. Unexpectedly, Wen Shichi found someone for her in a short time. How could she not be happy? Wen Shichi fell silent and looked at Xiao Jie with his glass-like eyes, which made her feel frightened. After a long while, he said, "Princess Qin can help you." Xiao Jie thought that she had heard it wrong. "Princess Qin, 5th Miss Xiao, can take you away from here with her identity and status, provided that you listen to her. Of course, it's up to you to persuade her." Wen Shichi said slowly with indifferent eyes, but his words shocked Xiao Jie's heart. Xiao Wanru. Chapter 12:12. A letter from Xiao Jie? Xiao Wanru frowned slightly and fluttered her long eyelashes twice, looking a little confused. Seeing this, Chu Luchen couldn't help laughing. He reached out to take her hand and continued to walk forward. After lunch, they only took Yu Jie and Xiao Xuanzi with them. It was at this time that Qing came to report. "It's a letter from Miss Jie. It was sent by Lord Wen on her behalf. He said that you'd better help us if you can." "Xiao Jie knows something about what happened yesterday," Qing said. "Xiao Jie knew something about what happened yesterday?" She raised her watery eyes slightly. She was a little surprised, but she felt that it was expected. After thinking for a while, she didn't know what to say. As for Xiao Jie, she deserved it, so she didn't feel sorry for her. "Don't worry if you don't want to get involved." Chu Luchen gently pulled her fingers and said softly, "It'll be good if the official of the Ministry of Justice can be found out." Xiao Wanru said with her long eyelashes fluttering a few times. It was a good opportunity now. She had to make Xiao Jing unable to get up. She had informed the third madam before. In these 2 days, Marquis Xing's mansion would definitely be separated. If Xiao Jie intervened at this time, it would be very beneficial. "You don't have to worry about it. I'll find out the truth," Chu Luchen said indifferently. His long and narrow eyes flickered twice with an evil aura. He slightly raised the corners of his thin lips and said, "The matter of Marquis Xing's mansion is a dirty matter, and many people have been implicated in it. Let's see what she said first." Xiao Wanru bit her lip and said, "There were some things that she had set up, and it was done in the backyard. If Chu Luchen intervened, he would be found out, so she might as well do it herself. Moreover, she was more willing to avenge the hatred of 2 lifetimes by herself." Hearing her determination, Chu Luchen did not stop her. In his opinion, it was fine as long as Xiao Wanru was happy. In fact, if he was not in a hurry, he could get rid of these things for Xiao Wanru one by one afterward. Now Xiao Wanru could not bear it, but it did not matter. As long as he was here, he could not let others harm his woman. However, when Shichi made him a little unhappy, he inexplicably felt that there was a tacit understanding between Wen Shichi and Xiao Wanru that he couldn't understand. This feeling was very uncomfortable, as if he had some rare treasure that others coveted. He was full of displeasure. Qing presented the letter. Xiao Wanru took the letter, opened the envelope and read it. After reading it, she took a deep breath and handed the letter to Chu Luchen. Chu Luchen took it and read it casually. After reading it, he asked indifferently, "What do you think? If I support Xiao Jie, will it affect you?" Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment and said, "No, don't worry. No matter what you do, it won't affect you. Since I've come to the front of others and I've recovered, of course, I won't let others bully you anymore. Do whatever you want to do boldly," Chu Luchen said gently, reached out to put his hand on Xiao Wanru's shoulder and held her in his arms. Her petite body almost fit into his broad arms, as if she was born for him. His gentle care almost made Xiao Wanru cry. Xiao Wanru found that as long as she was by Chu Liuchen's side, it was easy for her to feel that she was just a little woman and no longer a ruthless avenger. It was him who made her heart warm. She bit her lip and looked into Chu Liuchen's eyes without dodging his gaze. She saw a trace of visible gentleness in his deep eyes under his long eyelashes. "Your Highness," she blinked her eyes again and again to blink away the bitterness and emotion at the bottom of her eyes. With him in this life, she was no longer immersed in hatred. "What's wrong?" Chu Liuchen asked softly. Xiao Wanru stopped talking and leaned against him. This time, she was the one who got close to him. After a pause, her hands slid down from her shoulder and held her slender waist tightly. "Zhuozhua, don't worry. I'll be fine at any time." Chu Liuchen's voice was gentle but with an irresistible power. She could hear the decisiveness and calmness in his words. He didn't just say it. He really thought so and would do it. Her long eyelashes fell on her eyes like tired butterflies. Her heart was heavy, and there was no hesitation. Although her eyes were slightly red, the corners of her lips curled up, and she nodded hard. "I know." How could she not know that? In fact, she had known this man's feelings for her for a long time. "Zhuozhua, how long until your birthday? It's not good to wait like this." The next moment, when she heard these words clearly, all her efforts were broken. Xiao Wanru suddenly pushed Chu Liuchen's arms away and gave him a coquettish look. How could he say such a thing at this time? Her face turned red. "Zhuozhua, what I said is true." Chu Liuchen sighed, and his handsome eyebrows looked a little pitiful. Pitiful? Xiao Wanru felt that she must be crazy to think that Chu Liuchen was pitiful. How could he say such a thing at this time? "I want to tell you about the letter," Xiao Wanru said with hatred. She pulled the letter from Chu Liuchen's hand and walked to the pavilion on the side. "Just say it." Chu Liuchen's doting voice came from behind, making Xiao Wanru's face turn red again. She stopped subconsciously. When Chu Liuchen stepped forward to hold her hand, she pinched him hard. "Zhuozhua, you want to kill your husband?" Chu Liuchen looked at Xiao Wanru with a sad face and felt aggrieved. Was he really the Prince Chen who took every conceivable possibility into account? Xiao Wanru bit her lip and glared at him with hatred, but she did not know that she was not fierce at all at the moment. Her watery eyes were full of shyness and anger, which made Chu Liuchen's eyes more gentle. The two of them sat down in the pavilion. Xiao Wanru squinted at Chu Liuchen and saw that he was still looking at her with a smile. His handsome eyebrows and eyes made her heart beat wildly, so she simply turned around and did not look at him. After being interrupted by him, the depression in her heart because of Xiao Jie also dissipated a lot. When she read it again, she didn't feel as depressed and annoyed as before. Xiao Jie didn't hide anything in the letter. She talked about what happened last night. She said that she saw a person being thrown into an empty yard in the mansion at that time. After that, the person who was thrown in disappeared. She happened to see this scene. After that, she saw a fire and a man in black sneak in. She didn't dare to look at him and immediately hid back. After that, old princess asked someone to check the whole prince's mansion. She also checked it several times. In the end, the matter stopped. She should have found the person, but Xiao Jie said that she didn't know where the person was now. She asked Xiao Wanru for help with this news. She didn't ask for much, as long as she could go back to Marquis Xing's mansion to stay for a few days. As for the rest, she would find a way by herself. Xiao Jie told Xiao Wanru what she knew first, which meant that she sincerely wanted Xiao Wanru's help. Xiao Jie didn't do this in the past. Holding the letter, she raised her watery eyes slightly. When had Xiao Jie been so smart? She knew that if she didn't write these things in front, she would never help her. The relationship between the two of them had been like fire and water, so how could Xiao Wanru help her? At the moment, she felt that it didn't matter to help her. When Shichi also felt very strange. He actually knew her character so well. If he knew that Xiao Jie wrote in this way, he would help her? Of course, it was not only because Xiao Jie wrote a good letter, but also because it was good for her. She raised the corners of her mouth silently. She couldn't understand Wen Shiqi's behavior. These things were also what Wen Shiqi wanted to know. However, it was not difficult for him to get information from Xiao Jie. Why did he drag her into this? Wen Shiqi is a little arrogant in the Ministry of Justice. How could he meddle in this kind of business? Chu Luchen snorted coldly, took the letter from her hand unhappily, threw it on the stone table, and said lazily, "Maybe it's because of Xiao Jie?" Xiao Wanru said, "The children of the two families grew up together. Xiao Jie and Wen Shiqi also grew up together. When did Wen Shiqi become so close to his childhood sweetheart?" Chu Luchen said disapprovingly and blinked his long eyelashes twice unhappily. His words were really sour. Xiao Wanru burst into laughter, reached out to pull his sleeve and said, "Well, it has nothing to do with me. No matter whether third young master Wen helps Xiao Jie or has other intentions, it is not necessarily because of me. I don't have a childhood sweetheart relationship with him." Her words made Chu Luchen feel relieved and very happy. However, he still showed a reluctant expression and said, "It's good that you can think in this way. Wen Shiqi's mind is hard to guess. You should stay away from him in the future." "Okay, I will definitely stay away from him. What about this letter?" Xiao Wanru pointed to the letter on the table and asked with a smile. Her gentle and delicate eyes made Chu Luchen feel sweet in his heart. He had never been a man of rules. Thinking of this, he reached out and pulled Xiao Wanru into his arms. He lowered his head, kissed her delicate cherry lips gently, and then whispered in her ear, "It's up to you." Yu Jie and Xiao Xuanzi looked straight at the corner of the ground in front of them, pretending that they didn't exist. Only the smiles in their eyes showed that they had seen this scene clearly. It was good for the master and the princess to be intimate. At least in this mansion, people would feel warm. Xiao Wanru blushed and hurriedly pushed him. Her waist was loosened and she almost fell out. She was startled and cried in a low voice. When she was about to fall to the ground, her waist was pulled heavily again and she fell into Chu Liuchen's arms again. Accompanied by Chu Liuchen's pleasant laughter, the chest she leaned against made a slight vibration, which made Xiao Wanru more clearly realize that she had been molested. Where was the evil and cruel Crown Prince Nangong? Why did Chu Luchen look like this at the moment? It was completely different from the impression he gave her in the last life. Her pink cheeks seemed to be smeared with the best rouge, and her eyes were gentle and shimmering. She stared coquettishly at the handsome face in front of her again with a little embarrassment. Could this person get better? Could he still be a quiet Prince Jin? Chapter 12-13. Chu Luchen looked down at Xiao Wanru and saw that there were two faint blushes on her snow-white tender face. Not only her face, but also her ears and neck had a faint blush. Her cherry lips became more and more beautiful, as if they were seductive and moist. They reflected her delicate little face and made her look indescribably charming. His heart involuntarily raced. He lowered his head and kissed her again on the corner of her soft lips. Xiao Wanru was in a daze. She felt as if her whole body was burning. Her whole body was burning hot like a prawn in a pot. She wanted to escape, but her delicate body was held tightly by him. His hands were so strong as if he was going to break her slender waist. Her nostrils were filled with his breath, making her completely immersed in his heavy breath. Xiao Wanru was forced to raise her head and let him do whatever he wanted. Finally, Chu Luchen couldn't stand it anymore. The person in his arms seemed to be tailor-made for him. No matter what she was, she fit him. He held Xiao Wanru tightly in his arms and calmed down his rapid breath. The person in his arms was petite and gentle. He could feel that her breath was not calm. She lay in his arms and didn't dare to raise her head until now. Chu Luchen couldn't help but burst into laughter. He lowered his head and kissed her hair gently. With her, his life was perfect. Without her, he didn't know what he would do. He thanked God for sending Zhuozhuo to him. Hearing his smile, Xiao Wanru became more and more shy. She buried her head tightly, as if this could reduce her shame. How could they do such a thing in broad daylight? If someone saw it, how could she explain it? Fortunately, this was Prince Chen's mansion. This was the only thing she was glad about now. She pinched his waist hard. Hearing Chu Liuchen's low cry of pain, she felt that it was not good, so she put down her hand and rubbed it deliberately. What's wrong? Do you feel sorry for me? Chu Liuchen's gentle voice with a sweet smile came into her ears. Xiao Wanru's face became redder. She didn't want to speak at all, as if everything she said would be full of shame. Couldn't he say nothing? He pursed his lips tightly, lowered his head, and remained motionless, pretending to be dead. Xiao Wanru was so scared that she exclaimed in a low voice and subconsciously reached out to hold Chu Liuchen. Since Zhuozhua doesn't want to see anyone, I'll take you back. Chu Liuchen's low and hoarse laughter sounded in her ears, which was different from the usual clear and bright aura, which inexplicably made her more and more shy. She twisted her body and whispered, "Put me down." "Why are you putting it down?" Chu Liuchen walked back with Xiao Wanru in his arms. Xiao Xuanzi and Yu Jie looked at each other with a smile and hurriedly followed him, but did not dare to make a sound. Everyone could see that the princess was angry out of shame. You still don't put me down. What if someone sees us?" Sensing that he continued to move forward, Xiao Wanru was really anxious and twisted her body more and more. As a young lady of an aristocratic family, she naturally couldn't do such an outrageous thing. Even if she wasn't the kind of person who followed the rules since she was young, she still felt ashamed to see others at this time. This was too outrageous. "I'm holding my princess. Do I need to be afraid of being seen?" Chu Liuchen said indifferently with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. The girl in his arms was too light, so light that he felt pity for her. "Someone will see us." Xiao Wanru was very anxious. Although Prince Chen's mansion was very strict, it couldn't guarantee that there were no spies sent by other mansions. "So what? No one can stop me." Chu Liuchen's voice was gentle with a bit of domineering momentum. This kind of momentum strangely calmed Xiao Wanru's restless heart. She bit her lip. They had walked for a while. Since he wouldn't let her go, it was useless for her to struggle. Her strength was not at the same level as Chu Liuchen's at all. No matter how hard she struggled, she would just be a joke to others. After figuring this out, Xiao Wanru immediately stopped moving. Sensing Xiao Wanru's meekness, the smile on Chu Liuchen's face became more gentle. He held the person in his arms tightly and relaxed his hands. She was his most precious treasure, his only treasure, and also the only woman he pursued. He could do anything for her. Only she was his only salvation. She saved his heart, which had been immersed in eternal darkness. Xiao Jie waited for Xiao Wanru's news. In fact, she didn't have much confidence. Xiao Jie would never have told her what she knew in the past. It was too stupid. Since others knew it, how could they come to save her? It was too stupid. She even suspected that when Shichi deliberately wanted her news, so he pretended to ask her to write such a letter. He said that he wanted to give it to Xiao Wanru, but in fact he wanted to read it himself. After all, he also wanted to know the news in the letter. But she had to do as he said. Now she had no way out. After thinking about it carefully, there was indeed only Xiao Wanru. She didn't get along well with Xiao Wanru. She had listened to the words of the Madam of Duke Jiang, Xiao Yinru, and old Madam more than once and harmed Xiao Wanru. Thinking of Xiao Wanru, she felt inexplicably guilty. Since when Shichi said so, she didn't dare to disobey him. After sending the letter, she had been restlessly walking around in the courtyard. The courtyard she lived in was not far from the empty courtyard before. Old Madam didn't want her to be too close to Chu Qing, which was also the most important reason why it was convenient for her to go to the empty courtyard before. Now Xiao Jie had told the secret she knew, but there was no news from Xiao Wanru for a long time. Xiao Jie was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot and had been pacing around several times. She sent Liu Xiang out to see if there was any news from Xiao Wanru outside. For a moment, she thought that if Chu Qing and old Madam knew what she said, they would definitely not spare her life. Her life could be said to be in Xiao Wanru's hands now, but why hadn't she come to save her? When Shichi had repeatedly said that Princess Chen would come to save her and told her not to act rashly, but she couldn't calm down. Thinking of Xiao Wanru, she felt guilty. She was really afraid that Xiao Wanru would ignore her. "Concubine, the prince is here." The door was slammed open, and Liu Xiang ran in with a face as pale as snow, sweating profusely. She had entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion with Xiao Jie, and lived a cautious life in the mansion, which was even worse than that in Marquis Xing's mansion. Prince is here? Xiao Jie said with a trembling voice, with the teacup in her hand falling heavily to the ground. I don't know. Prince brought a few people here. I saw them from a distance, so I came to report to you immediately, Leota also said in a trembling voice. Neither the master nor the servant were courageous, and neither were they very smart. Like her master, Liu Xiang was also mean. She tried hard to curry favor with those who were inferior to her, and she tried hard to be mean to those who were inferior to her. It seemed that she wanted to take revenge for the humiliation others had inflicted on them. Then what should we do? Xiao Jie said with trembling hands. She was in a panic and her mind was in a mess. She didn't know what to do now. Had she been exposed and old madam asked Chu Qing to kill her? She was about to be killed and thrown into the mass grave. Thinking of this, she felt terrible. She collapsed on the chair and couldn't stand up. Concubine consort, you can be assured, nothing will happen. His Highness has always liked you, nothing will happen. Liu Xiang comforted her with a pale face. Even if she said these words, neither of them would believe her. Chu Qing treated Xiao Jie well now, but he was just good to her. In the face of old madam's dilemma, Chu Qing didn't say a word. He just stood behind his mother and never treated Xiao Jie well. Liu Xiang, what should we do? What should we do? Xiao Jie was at a loss and her eyes turned red with anxiety. She was really afraid that the matter between her and Wen Shiqi would be exposed. If the matter between her and Wen Shiqi was discovered, she would definitely die. She didn't want to die like this. She was still young. How could she die at such a young age? She didn't want to die. She suddenly stood up and subconsciously wanted to run back. She didn't want to see Chu Qing. Said I fell asleep and I'm not feeling well. Concubine, it's useless for you to go back. Prince Yu is about to arrive. It's useless for you to say that you're not feeling well. Liu Xiang grabbed her and said bluntly while trembling. Xiao Jie felt that she was favored for a period of time, so she became spoiled. When Chu Qing came over, she said that she was not feeling well and wanted to get Chu Qing's care. However, Chu Qing ignored her and let her serve him as she should. He didn't care whether she was uncomfortable or not. Then what should we do? Xiao Jie said with trembling hands. Concubine, Prince Yu is here. Come and greet him. A voice came from outside. It was the voice of Chu Qing's manservant. The master and servant in the room were even more flustered. Since Prince Yu was here, they couldn't avoid him even if they wanted to. In this case, Xiao Jie was desperate. She immediately gritted her teeth and ordered forcefully, Go, follow me to greet Prince Yu. Concubine, Liu Xiang exclaimed in a low voice, and her legs trembled. If you still want to live, put away your fear. Otherwise, I'll be the first to push you out. Xiao Jie threatened fiercely. If she was the first to be pushed out, how could she live? Liu Xiang was scared by her and strangely stopped trembling. Although her face was still pale, she looked much calmer. She even went forward to tidy up Xiao Jie's clothes. Concubine, don't worry. This servant won't ruin your plan. The two of them calmed down together and knew that they had to greet him no matter what. What would happen next was not something they could decide. Xiao Jie gritted her teeth, lifted her soft legs and walked out slowly. When she just walked to the door of the room, she saw Chu Qing walking over with his hands behind his back with a gloomy face. Xiao Jie's legs became soft again. She leaned against the door frame and called out in a sweet voice, Prince. Then she bowed sideways. Liu Xiang hid behind her and also bowed. Chu Qing looked at them coldly and strode into the room. He sat down on the chair in the middle and his eyes fell on Xiao Jie, which made the hair on her back stand up. Chapter 12:14. Greetings, Your Highness. Xiao Jie suppressed the fear in her heart and stepped forward to bow gracefully. Liu Xiang still followed closely behind her. Chu Qing's eyes fell on Xiao Jie coldly, which made Xiao Jie feel even colder. She felt creeped out and her mind trembled. What did Chu Qing mean by looking at her like this? Did he find something? You've been in the mansion for a period of time, haven't you? Chu Qing finally said. I've been in the mansion for several months. Xiao Jie lowered her head and did not dare to let Chu Qing see the fear in her eyes. How do I treat you? Chu Qing asked. Your Highness, you dote on me very much. When I was in Marquis Xing's mansion, I was always ignored. It was not until I came to your mansion that I realized that I was also loved by others. Xiao Jie said. Hearing her sincerity, Chu Qing looked a little better. He reached out to point at the stool beside him and said, Sit. Your Highness, there's no place for me to sit. I'd better stand and serve you. Xiao Jie said cautiously. It doesn't matter. Just sit. Chu Qing reprimanded her. Xiao Jie didn't dare to talk back. She sat down on a spring stool on one side. Because she was nervous, she just sat down slightly. Her whole body was tense, which made her feel more uncomfortable than standing, but she didn't dare to say anything. Chu Qing's purpose of coming was unclear. Until now, she had not figured out what he meant, so she did not dare to relax at all. I've long heard that you have had a bad time in Marquis Xing's mansion. It was Xiao Yanru who fell into the water at that time, but you were the scapegoat in the end. Xiao Jing is obviously not a good person. Since you came to my mansion, I've also taken pity on you. At present, you are the only legitimate woman in my mansion. Even if Qiui marries into my mansion in the future, you will get many benefits. If you can give birth to the eldest son, I don't need to tell you what will happen in the future, right? Chu Qing looked at Xiao Jie and said, I understand. Xiao Jie said softly in a low voice. If she had heard these words before she married into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she would have had infinite thoughts. But now, she only felt shocked instead of happy. What did Chu Qing mean by saying this at this time? Even the old princess valued Mo Qiui so much that she even sent her out regardless of her status. How could Chu Qing allow himself to give birth to the eldest son and cause trouble for Mo Qiui? Another reason why Xiao Jie gave up was the child. She had once thought that based on Mo Qiui's character and how much old princess valued Mo Qiui, even if Mo Qiui drugged her in the future and made her infertile, Chu Qing and old princess wouldn't say anything. Xiao Jie said that she was the only female master in the mansion now, and the more outstanding she was now, the more unlucky she would be in the future. These days in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion made Xiao Jie realize this. Ever since Mo Qiui married into the family, she would be an eternal tragedy. That person was probably even crueler to her than the old princess. As long as you understand. Seeing her like this, Chu Qing's expression became more and more gentle. He even poured a glass of water, handed it to her, and asked softly, You have a good relationship with Princess Qin. Why didn't you tell me? What? Xiao Jie looked up subconsciously. Princess Qin came to the mansion to see you today and said that she wanted to see you. She also said that old Madame of Marquis Xing was seriously ill and asked you to go back to see her and stay for a few days, Chu Qing said. Xiao Jie vigorously. After taking a few breaths, she felt as if she had come back to life. It was not because of Xiao Wanru's arrival that Xiao Yanru had come. Did Xiao Wanru really come? Xiao Jie was overjoyed, but when she saw Chu Qing frowning slightly, she immediately sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly changed her smiling face into a sad one. Is Grandma ill? Is he that sick? Grandmother's health wasn't good to begin with. Now that so many things have happened in the mansion, Grandmother can't suppress them all. Speaking of this, Xiao Jie took a handkerchief to wipe her tears and said, Although my grandmother is not good to me, she is my biological grandmother after all. Your Highness, please allow me to live there for 2 days and serve her. After saying that, she burst into tears. Looking at her anxious look, Chu Qing frowned slightly and said with a less gloomy look, Old Madam is ill. As her granddaughter, you naturally have to go and see her. Speaking of this, he paused for a moment and looked at Xiao Jie. Didn't you get along with Princess Qin before? Why did Princess Chen go there in person for you? Everyone knew that Princess Chen was not liked by the people of Marquis Xing's mansion. In particular, the relationship between the second branch of Marquis Xing's mansion and the first branch was not good. Although Xiao Jie was not Madame Zhang's biological daughter, she was the daughter of the second branch after all, so she should not have a good relationship with Xiao Wanru. It's true that my relationship with Princess Chen was not very good in the past, but, after all, we are sisters of the same mansion. Moreover, Madame Jiang and Big Sister treated you the worst. I'm just a concubine and can't make any decisions. I just follow others to do things. Fifth sister, you have always been kind, so you should know my suffering and situation. Xiao Jie pulled her handkerchief and muttered. In other words, when Xiao Jie was in Marquis Xing's mansion, she did not really fall out with Xiao Wanru, nor did she treat Xiao Wanru harshly. It was Madame Jiang and Xiao Yenru who plotted against Xiao Wanru, and it had nothing to do with Xiao Jie. Even if Xiao Jie was not close to Xiao Wanru in the mansion at that time, Xiao Wanru would understand her helplessness as a daughter of a concubine. Have you been following Xiao Yenru at that time? Chu Qing thought for a while and asked. Back then, I followed Big Sister and did some things to hurt fifth younger sister for Big Sister, but they were not big things. At that time, I had no choice but to do many things. I felt very apologetic. Sometimes, I would secretly send someone to pass a message to fifth younger sister. Xiao Jie kept calling her fifth sister and tried her best to get close to Xiao Wanru. This was the only straw she could grasp now, so she had to hold on to it tightly. You have a good relationship with Princess Chen? I've never heard you mention it before. Since it's really good, you should walk around more in the future. Come with me to Lady Mother's place. Chu Qing was relieved. With a gentle look, he stood up and took Xiao Jie's hand. Let's go. I'll go with you. Xiao Jie was flattered and stood up. This was the treatment she had never received since she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. She followed Chu Qing to old princess's yard anxiously. As soon as she arrived at the door of the main room, she heard the sound of laughter inside. It was old princess's voice. It sounded soft, not like the woman who was too strong and usual. The curtain was raised high by a maid. Chu Qing pulled Xiao Jie into the room. The two people who were talking turned around and looked at them. Chu Qing seemed to have just realized that he was pulling. Feeling that Xiao Jie's hand was inappropriate, she put it down and stepped forward with a smile. Princess Chen is here. His intimate voice made Xiao Jie look at him in disbelief. Was the gentle and elegant Chu Qing in front of her really the Chu Qing she knew? It was the first time for Xiao Wanru to see old princess of Commandery Prince Qing sitting in the hall. Today, she came to keep her promise to take Xiao Jie away and meet this old princess of Commandery Prince Qing by the way. It was said that this old princess was also a favored concubine who could summon wind and rain when she was in the Imperial palace. She almost pushed the former empress off the throne. If the former empress hadn't died early, it was uncertain whether the former empress could have been the empress. After being locked up in the Yuhui nunnery, such a woman had been very quiet. After being released, it showed that she was used to living a quiet life and was unwilling to appear in front of others. She had just been living in the Buddha hall in the mansion. At first, people also sent invitations to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. After being rejected again and again, they stopped sending invitations. This mysterious old princess had been living in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion and had never appeared in front of others. At this time, it was the first time for Xiao Wanru to see this old princess. She looked a little older than the women of the same age in the Imperial palace. She was at least 10 years older than them. Maybe it was because she had lived a hard life in the Yuhui nunnery before. Different from the old madams of other mansions who liked to wear colorful clothes, her clothes looked much simpler and didn't have superfluous and complicated lace. There was a string of Buddha beads in her hand, and there was also a faint Buddhist incense in the room. It seemed that this old princess had just come back from the Buddha hall. Old Madam of Marquis Xing used to like to study Buddhism, so she also had a string of Buddha beads in her hand. However, the string of Buddha beads of old princess was obviously different from old madam's. At first glance, it was obvious that she often held it in her hand, unlike old Madam who only used it occasionally. Although old Princess was old, her facial features could still vaguely show the appearance of those years. After all, she was a favored concubine in those years, so how could she not be beautiful? When Xiao Wanru came in, old Princess gently invited her to sit down. After asking her about her purpose, she asked someone to summon Chu Qing and ask him to bring Xiao Jie here. The whole process was so gentle that Xiao Wanru felt that the old princess in front of her was really a gentle and kind person. There were many doubts about Chu Qing. Of course, Xiao Wanru did not believe that this old princess was really so gentle and harmless. Since she could give birth to the posthumous child of the late emperor in a place like the Yuhui nunnery, she knew that this old princess was very determined. In order to prevent the child in her belly from being killed, she became the concubine of the late emperor who had not given birth to a child and was sent to the Yuhui nunnery. After that, she gave birth to Chu Qing there. After enduring for so many years, how could it be simple? There were many mysteries in the Yuhui nunnery. Those who could live in such a place for so many years represented mystery. For example, Pushun Nun and Mo Chioi were not simple people. Another point was Xiao Jie's attitude. If this old princess was really kind, how could Xiao Jie think of escaping? As long as there was a slight possibility, Xiao Jie would definitely be delusional. How could she think of leaving Commandery Prince Qing's mansion wholeheartedly? Xiao Jie must have thought of leaving when she had no other choice. When Xiao Jie came in, Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on her, and there was a slight ripple in her eyes. She knew that Xiao Jie would not have a good life, but she did not expect that Xiao Jie's life would be so difficult. Her cheeks were so thin that even her cheekbones were protruding. She did not look like a young woman at all. Chapter 12:15. Greetings, Princess Qin. After entering the door, Xiao Jie stepped forward and bowed to old princess without looking sideways. Then she bowed to Xiao Wanru beside her. You're welcome, second sister. Please sit down. Xiao Wanru said softly. Xiao Jie looked up at the old princess sitting in the middle. Princess Qin is so polite. Why don't you sit down and have a good chat? Old princess nodded with a gentle smile. The maid brought a spring stool over, and Xiao Jie sat down sideways. Old princess, since second sister is here, please come back to the mansion with me. Grandma is really... Xiao Wanru sighed softly, looked at old princess and said, Of course I should let Jera go, but I don't know how many days she will stay? Old princess asked gently. I really don't know. It depends on grandma's situation. If there's nothing else, second sister can go back today. Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jie and saw the nervousness in Xiao Jie's eyes when she heard what she said. Old madam's health is so poor? Old princess said in surprise. Xiao Wanru said vaguely, Grandma's health is getting worse and worse, and she has some old problems. There are many things to do in the mansion, and there is no supervisor in the backyard. Grandma is tired, so she feels a little uncomfortable. What happened to Marquis Xing's mansion did cause more and more criticism in the capital city. What happened to your second aunt? Why did she get into trouble in the Ministry of Justice? Old princess asked curiously when it came to Marquis Xing's mansion. This matter? I don't know what happened. The Ministry of Justice is still investigating it. Xiao Wanru's smile faded. I heard that Madame Jiang went there because of Princess Qin. Is it true? Old princess continued to ask, as if she didn't see the displeasure on Xiao Wanru's face. Chu Qing sat aside with a smile and said nothing. The Ministry of Justice is investigating the affairs of the Madam of Duke Xing and second uncle. When there is a conclusion, old princess will know, Xiao Wanru said coldly. I heard that Princess Chen's younger brother is the heir of Marquis Xing. Such a big thing happened in Marquis Xing's mansion, but your younger brother didn't go to Marquis Xing's mansion? Old princess asked again. Although she changed the topic, the meaning in her words still made people unhappy. Grandma is in charge of this matter. I don't quite understand it. Xiao Wanru shook her head, and the unhappy expression on her pink little face became more and more obvious. These questions were a little too intimate. Not to mention that old princess and Xiao Wanru had never been friends. Even if they had been friends before, she should not have said such words. Princess Jin, I'm sorry. My mother has been living in the Yuhui nunnery for so many years and is used to being straightforward. Chu Qing explained with a smile. Xiao Wanru stood up and said, It doesn't matter. But these things are the affairs of the elders, and I can't interfere in them. It's getting late, so I'll take second sister back first. If there's nothing else, I'll ask Lord Protector's mansion to send second sister back later. Since they were going to see a patient, Commandery Prince Qing's mansion couldn't keep them here. She asked someone to prepare a carriage and followed Xiao Wanru's carriage to Marquis Xing's mansion. When they arrived at Marquis Xing's mansion, Xiao Jie got out of the carriage and wanted to wait for Xiao Wanru, who was behind her, to enter the door together. However, she saw Yu Jie hurriedly get out of the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion, walk up to Xiao Jie, bow sideways to her, and say, Second miss, our princess is not feeling well, so she won't go in. It's up to you. Our princess has fulfilled her promise. She meant that what would happen next had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru. Although Xiao Jie wanted to cling to Xiao Wanru again, Xiao Wanru didn't even get out of the carriage, so they couldn't see each other. Seeing Yu Jie quickly get into the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion, the coachman raised his whip, turned the horse around and left, leaving Xiao Jie at the door. Concubine, Liu Xiang said. Call her second miss. Xiao Jie, interrupted Liu Xiang. It's second miss. Liu Xiang hurriedly changed the way she addressed Xiao Jie. In order to comply with old princess's order in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she sometimes called Xiao Jie, second Mississippi. It was not difficult for her to change the way she addressed Xiao Jie. Zhao Shiran, who was at the door, got the news and hurriedly came out. When he saw only Xiao Jie, he was stunned. First sister-in-law. Xiao Jie, stepped forward and bowed. Second sister, why are you here? Where is fifth sister? Zhao Shiran looked out and asked in surprise. The servant at the gate of the mansion reported that Princess Chen had come, but didn't say that Xiao Jie had returned to the mansion. Since Xiao Jie entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she had lost contact with the people in the mansion. Zhao Shiran didn't expect that she would come here at this juncture. Judging from Xiao Jie's appearance, it was obvious that she didn't live a good life in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Fifth sister left after sending me here. Xiao Jie stood up straight and said. How could she leave? Grandma happened to have something to talk to her about. Zhao Shiran stamped his feet hard and said anxiously. Now the mansion was in a mess. His father-in-law had been taken away by the people of the Ministry of Justice. Old Madam was anxious and wanted him to find Xiao Wanru, but he was too ashamed to do so. Hearing that Princess Chen had come, he hurried over, only to find that she had left again. It was hard to explain it to Old Madam. How is Grandma? Xiao Jie asked. Grandma is in good health. Wait for me. I'll go after fifth sister. Zhao Shiran was not in the mood to pay attention to Xiao Jie. He turned around and was about to order someone to prepare a carriage to chase after fifth sister. However, Xiao Jie grabbed his sleeve and said, First sister-in-law, fifth sister is a smart person. What can you do even if you go after her now? Don't tell me you can really get fifth sister back? But I have to go after her. Since fifth sister is here, how can she not enter the mansion? Zhao Shiran had a headache because of old Madam's quarrel and wanted to chase after Xiao Wanru wholeheartedly. First sister-in-law, don't worry. I'll go with you to see fifth sister next time. It'll be easier for us to talk when we go together. Xiao Jie held Zhao Shiran's sleeve and refused to let go. Her words were polite. Zhao Shiran was embarrassed to go to Prince Chen's mansion. Hearing Xiao Jie's words, he breathed a sigh of relief and nodded repeatedly. Okay, next time you go with me. Second sister, you don't know how anxious Grandma is. Now only fifth sister can solve this problem. Zhao Shiran said with a headache. Up to now, no one had expected that things would turn out like this. Madam of Duke Xing had been taken away, and then Madam of Duke Xing died. Now it was Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing was Marquis Xing and the head of the mansion. Old Madam was so anxious that she slapped Zhao Shiran twice and asked her to find a way. But what could she do? Although she was smart, she was a woman of the inner courtyard after all. She knew that old madam wanted to force her to ask her father for help to settle this matter, but it was useless to ask her father. Her father sent a message telling her to stay out of this matter. What Xiao Jing might do might implicate the whole Marquis Xing's mansion. She couldn't do anything about her father, so she turned her attention to Xiao Wanru. In the whole Marquis Xing's mansion, only Xiao Wanru had the status to speak for Xiao Jing. But Xiao Wanru ignored her. Zhao Xiran couldn't do anything about it. This was also the reason why she hurried out to welcome Xiao Wanru when she heard that she had arrived at the gate of the mansion. She didn't expect that it was not Xiao Wanru but the useless Xiao Jie. Now she could only bring Xiao Jie in. She could take Xiao Jie in. After entering the main room, old madam got the news and got up happily, waiting for Xiao Wanru to come in. This time, no matter what, she had to ask Xiao Wanru to save Marquis Xing's mansion and her son. She even made up her mind to kneel down to Xiao Wanru. Unexpectedly, it was Xiao Jie and Zhao Xiran who came in. Old madam pulled a long face and asked, "Where is Princess Chen?" "Old madam, fifth sister has gone back. She specially sent me here today. She heard that old madam is not in good health, so I came to have a look." Xiao Jie took 2 steps forward and saluted old madam. Looking at Xiao Jie's face, old madam was furious. She picked up something casually and threw it at Xiao Jie. "What's the use of you coming here? Only the 5 girls are useful. 1 or 2 girls, no matter whether they are useful or not, bring them to the mansion." Old madam's mind was full of the matter of her son being taken to the Ministry of Justice. Her mind was in a mess and she disliked everyone. Zhao Xiran had been beaten by her before, and now it was Xiao Jie's turn. Zhao Xiran took another step back calmly and stayed away from old madam. Xiao Jie was hit and felt very painful. She looked sideways and found that it was a wooden fish that fell to the ground. It looked very heavy and made her back hurt. She felt a sweetness in her throat. Knowing that it was not good, she swallowed hard to suppress the sweetness in her mouth and a trace of hatred flashed in her eyes. She had wanted to deal with old madam. Since this old woman wanted to kill her, there was no need for her to care about her. "Old madam, I will accompany my sister-in-law to invite 5th sister later." Suppressing the hatred in her heart, Xiao Jie said. It was this old woman's fault that her marriage became like this. Seeing that she had fallen into such a situation, not only did the old woman not help her, but she also vented her anger on her. Xiao Jie had long hated old madam. "Then why don't you go? What are you waiting for? If something happens to your father, you can't have a foothold in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion in the future. When the princess marries in the future, who will support you?" Old madam scolded. Xiao Jie hated old madam's words. It seemed that old madam would support her if her father didn't have an accident. A trace of sarcasm flashed in her eyes. She was just a daughter of non-lineal descent who was used to get the greatest benefits for Xiao Yanru. Everything she had could only be given to Xiao Yanru, and she had to seek benefits for Xiao Yanru. She had never been included in the so-called kinship. How could old madam put on such a face? "Grandma, we'll go in a while. Do you want to take a rest first? When 5th sister comes later, I can have some energy to talk to her." Xiao Jie said softly. She raised her eyes and looked at old madam's crooked face. At a glance, she knew that old madam was in a bad situation. However, it made it convenient for her to do things. Old madam had been waiting for Xiao Wanru to come. Now that Xiao Wanru didn't come and Xiao Jie came, she was indeed in low spirits. Hearing Xiao Jie's words, she closed her eyes and said to Nanny Yu, "Help me in and have a rest for a while." Nanny Yu stepped forward to support one side of old madam, and Xiao Jie also hurried forward to support the other side of old madam. They helped old madam into the room together, and Zhao Xiran followed them in. "First sister-in-law, go to prepare something first. Let's go to see 5th sister together later," Yu Zhi said in a low voice. Old madam was satisfied with her words and snorted a few times. "Okay, I'll go now. I'll invite 2nd sister later." Zhao Xiran nodded knowingly and retreated. When he was outside, he took a deep breath and turned his head to look at the house. There was a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 12:16. Nanny Yu, did Grandma take any medicine? In the room, Xiao Jie helped old Madam lie down and carefully covered her with the quilt. Yes, old Madam is in poor health and has been taking medicine. Nanny Yu nodded and said, "Is there any other nutritious food? Some good decoctions are actually better than medicine." Xiao Jie said with concern. Old Madam doesn't like it very much. Nanny Yu said helplessly, "I have a prescription here. It's a dietary supplement. Nanny Yu, please ask the kitchen to make one for old Madam. Maybe it will be effective. Old Princess has been using it before, and I think she uses it very well." Xiao Jie took out a prescription of medicinal diet from her arms and handed it to Nanny Yu. "If it works, it will be great." "Thank you, Second Mississippi," Nanny Yu said, turned around and left with the prescription. Xiao Jie looked calmly at old Madam, who was lying on the bed. After a while, old Madam began to snore softly, as if she had fallen asleep. Old Madam moved, opened her eyes, and saw Xiao Jie standing motionlessly in front of the bed. She moved her throat and scolded, "It's none of your business here. Get out of here." Xiao Jie said coldly. Seeing Xiao Jie like this, she felt very frustrated. "Old Madam, do you want me to leave?" Xiao Jie suddenly smiled. The light from the window fell into her eyes, giving off a deep light. "Cheap daughter of a concubine." Old Madam snorted and closed her eyes. She had always looked down on daughters of a concubine. Now only her son lived in Marquis Xing's mansion, and other sons and daughters of a concubine had been separated. Old Madam suddenly felt her neck tighten. She opened her eyes uncomfortably and saw Xiao Jie's gloomy smile. She struggled hard, but her throat was tightly pinched. Although Xiao Jie was not strong, she was much stronger than Old Madam. "Old Madam, do you think that I, a daughter of a concubine, is useless and that Xiao Yanru, a daughter of a concubine, is useful?" Xiao Jie laughed with hatred and said with a ferocious look on her beautiful face, "What's so good about it? You gave it all to her. You saw her bully me, but you still asked me to apologize. I'm always wrong. I'm just a piece of mud on Xiao Yanru's feet. Old Madam, have you ever thought that one day you will die in the hands of mud?" Xiao Wanru's voice was not loud, but every word fell into Old Madam's ears. Old Madam struggled hard and breathed rapidly, desperately trying to get rid of Xiao Jie's hand. "Old Madam, don't you want to save my father? Actually, there was a way. That, if you die, my father will come back to solve the problem. Maybe he can solve the problem this time. What do you think? Old Madam, do you want to die like this to help my father?" Xiao Jie laughed a little crazily, but she suppressed it tightly. This kind of feeling was more shocking than being crazy. There was still a trace of clarity in his madness. Wasn't this kind of person the most terrifying? Old Madam struggled and rolled her eyes. With saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth, she rolled her eyes and fainted. Xiao Jie put down her hand and carefully wiped it with a handkerchief. She wiped it very slowly and cleanly, as if her hands had not pinched Old Madam just now. After wiping her hands clean, she stood at the head of the bed and looked coldly at Old Madam, who was twitching a little. She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and turned out of the inner room. In the outer room, she asked Liu Xiang to pour a cup of tea and sat quietly, waiting for Zhao Xiran to send someone over. As expected, before long, an old maid came to invite Xiao Jie. Xiao Jie said a few words to the servant girl guarding at the door and left with the person sent by Zhao Xiran. As soon as she left, Nanny Yu came back in a hurry. She went to the door and asked the servant girl guarding outside. After knowing that Old Madam didn't call her and Second Miss had just left, she breathed a sigh of relief. She wiped the sweat off her face and walked to the inner room. When she entered the inner room, she saw Old Madam lying on the bed with saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth and the whites of her eyes. She was so scared that she almost fell to the ground. When Zhao Xiran and Xiao Jie arrived at Prince Chen's mansion, they didn't enter and went back. Princess Chen was not in Prince Chen's mansion. She went to the palace and didn't know when she would come back. When they entered the mansion, they didn't see her, so they simply went back first. When the carriage returned to the mansion, Zhao Shiran just got out of the carriage and saw an old maid in front of her, who was her dowry. First young mistress, go and have a look. Something happened to old madam. What happened? Zhao Shiran said in surprise. I don't know. I just saw Nanny Yu go to first young master and first young master invited an imperial physician. At this time, first young master also went to Chuntang courtyard. Go and have a look. The old maid said. Xiao Jie also got out of the carriage. Hearing the old maid's words, she walked over and asked, First sister-in-law, what happened? Something happened to old madam. Zhao Shiran said with a serious face. Let's go and have a look. Xiao Jie said in a hurry and looked anxious. When they hurried over, they saw that there were a lot of people sitting in the room. Even the third uncle, who rarely showed up, was there. The third madam also came over despite her illness. Xiao Taihuan and Xiao Kaling were also there. Everyone looked terrible. Zhao Shiran looked around and found Xiao Hua sitting in the chair. She hurried over. Xiao Hua looked a little terrible. He glanced at Zhao Shiran and didn't smile as usual. He said, Where have you been? Something happened to Grandma and I didn't see you. Grandma asked me to go to see fifth sister with my second sister. Zhao Shiran felt wronged. How is it? Xiao Hua knew the implied meaning of his words and asked in a low voice. I didn't see fifth sister. She went to the palace and I don't know when she will come back. Zhao Shiran lowered his voice and said, How is Grandma? What happened? Grandma may have had a stroke. Xiao Hua said impatiently. His biological mother had just died, and today his grandma had had a stroke. His father was taken away by the Ministry of Justice for questioning. The whole Marquis Xing's mansion was in a mess. The imperial physician came out. Xiao Hua had no time to care about Zhao Shiran. He pushed Zhao Shiran away and took a few steps forward. He asked hurriedly, Imperial physician, how is my grandma? The imperial physician shook his head helplessly. Old madam has always been in poor health. She fainted just now. This time she really had a stroke. She should take good care of herself in the future. I'm afraid she can't get out of bed. My grandma is fine. How could she become like this? Xiao Hua said hurriedly. I don't know about that. The person lying inside has a stroke, and the people outside don't know about it. Aren't the servants in your mansion waiting on the bed? Do they only wait on the outside from afar? It's normal for an old person who is not in good health to have a stroke. Your mansion is too careless. The imperial physician said. An old person with such poor health should always be served by someone close to keep an eye on her. Otherwise, it would be easy for something to happen. If there were such people around old Madame of Marquis Xing, she should not have had such a serious stroke. Half of her body had suffered a stroke. How could she move? She must lie in bed for the rest of the time. Is there any other way? Xiao Huan asked. What else can we do? Just take good care of herself. Let her live as long as possible. The imperial physician said. After that he left with the medicine box and went to the wing room to write a prescription. It was better to take good care of her than not. Nanny Yu, what the hell is going on? Third old master Xiao looked at Nanny Yu unkindly and said in a stern voice, My mother has been fine before. How could such a thing happen? Nanny Yu knelt down. Third old master, I don't know. I just went to get a prescription of medicinal cuisine for old madam and gave it to the kitchen. When I came back, she became like this. This prescription was given to me by Second Mississippi. Since old madam had such a thing happen, how could Nanny Yu stand still? Jia, what are you doing here today? What the hell is going on? How did your grandmother become like this? Third old master Xiao's eyes fell on Xiao Jia, and he asked unhappily. Third uncle, I don't know. When I left, my grandmother was still fine. Xiao Jia was so scared that she stammered. What do you mean by you don't know? Since you were there at that time, why didn't you know anything? Did you do something? Third old master Xiao looked at Xiao Jia, suspiciously and said. Xiao Jie was now the concubine of Commandery Prince Qing. Who knew if she would do something? Third uncle, how can you say that? I just came to see my grandmother today. I heard from my fifth sister that my grandmother is not in good health. After I came here, my sister-in-law asked me to find my fifth sister together. I have only stayed in the mansion for a short time. How can you blame me? Third uncle, if you don't believe me, I am willing to die to show my sincerity. Xiao Jie was anxious. She cried and wanted to hit the pillar on the side. Liu Xiang pulled her and also cried. The room became more and more chaotic. Third Madam reached out and touched her forehead, only to feel that the blue veins on her forehead were jumping fast. She pressed her eyes hard to suppress the indescribable discomfort in her heart, and then slowly opened her eyes. Well, don't make trouble. Let's see what we should do next. What should we do? What else can we do? Mother is in such a state, and eldest brother is still in the Ministry of Justice. What should we do? Third Old Master Xiao had never been a troublemaker. He was Old Madam's youngest son in the mansion. Although he was disappointing, Old Madam treated him well. Now that the responsibility was going to fall on him, he was also very flustered. Go to the Ministry of Justice to find Master Ho and ask him to go back to the mansion first. Third Madam pressed her hand on her chest and coughed before saying in a low voice. Find eldest brother. I will go to the Ministry of Justice to find eldest brother now. Third Old Master Xiao's eyes lit up. He said repeatedly, left the mess in the room and hurried out. The people who stayed were all dumbfounded. Third Old Master Xiao didn't even say a word and really left like this. Who was going to leave this mess to? Third Aunt, you are not in good health. Go back first. Third Sister, Fourth Sister, help Third Aunt. Zhao Shiran had to stand up and take charge of the affairs. Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kaling had long wanted to leave here. They answered and helped Third Madam to leave Chuntang Courtyard. Second Sister, you also go back first. Zhao Shiran said to Xiao Jie. Sister-in-law, I won't go. Chapter 12:17. Xiao Jie cried and said firmly while wiping her tears, Grandma had such an accident. Although it happened after I left, since I saw it, how could I leave? I will stay to take care of Grandma and go back when she gets better. Zhao Shiran was so angry that smoke almost came out of her nose. What did she mean by that? She was blaming him for not taking good care of Madame Dowager. She reached out to pull Xiao Jie and continued to persuade her. Second Sister, Xiao Jie shook off Zhao Shiran's hand and pulled the table beside her tightly with one hand. She used so much force that the table was pulled over by her. Madam, if you must let me go back, I will die here today. Zhao Shiran was so angry that she gritted her teeth and didn't want to care about Xiao Jie anymore. She turned to Xiao Huan and said, Husband, what do you think? Let Second Sister stay to take care of Grandma. Xiao Huan said with a cold face and looked at Zhao Shiran with dissatisfaction. Zhao Shiran also saw the displeasure in Xiao Huan's eyes, but she didn't want to take care of Madame Dowager. She thought it was good that Madame Dowager ended up like this. She didn't want Madame Dowager to criticize her behind her back and scold her whenever she didn't get what she wanted. She wanted Madame Dowager to come back because she wanted her to stop her father-in-law from marrying a cheap woman. Unexpectedly, after Madame Dowager and her father-in-law talked about it in private, Madame Dowager seemed to agree. In fact, not only Madame Dowager and her father-in-law, but her husband also agreed, right? Thinking of this, Zhao Shiran felt very aggrieved. Why did they all know the reason but she didn't? Obviously, Xiao Huan didn't treat her as one of them and was suspicious of her. What Madame Jiang said at that time always came to her mind. Did Xiao Huan really know that she married him for another purpose? Then he secretly observed her and played her like a clown. Or only Madame Jiang thought so? Zhao Shiran didn't know the answer. She could only be careful. She really didn't want to interfere in Madame Dowager's affairs. Madame Dowager was in a bad situation now, so it was better for her to avoid trouble. When Xiao Jing came back, Old Madame had already fallen asleep. In fact, it couldn't be said that Old Madame had fallen asleep. After the stroke, Old Madam's face and mouth were crooked and she couldn't even speak a complete sentence. No one knew what she wanted to express, but it could be seen that she was very angry. She pushed Xiao Jie to the ground and then wanted to hit her. Then she was tired and fell asleep. He was no longer as clear and bright as before. Xiao Jing sat on the chair in front of the bed with a gloomy face and looked at Old Madam lying on the bed with a gloomy face. After a long while, he waved his hand to let Xiao Jie come over. "Do you want to stay and take care of your grandmother?" Xiao Jing asked coldly. "I'm worried about Grandma's health." Seeing that Xiao Jing was still very scared, Xiao Jie said in a trembling voice. Xiao Jing's round face should have looked kind, but now it inexplicably made Xiao Jie feel scared. "Did you have a bad time in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion?" Xiao Jing said coldly. Looking at the trembling Xiao Jie, his eyes were filled with disgust. His daughter was so useless, which really made him angry. If it were Ru, she wouldn't need his help. At the thought of Xiao Yanru, he felt annoyed again. He had to solve this problem immediately. So what if he was a heartless man? It was best for Ru to become his daughter again. "Father, I don't want to go to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion." Knowing that Xiao Jing had seen through her, Xiao Jie knelt down with a plop, crawled on her knees to Xiao Jing's feet, and cried, "Father, they said that they would give me the title of a consort, but they haven't officially given me such a title yet. They asked the people in the mansion to call me Second Mississippi. I'm still your daughter at least." "Call you Second Miss Xiao?" A trace of anger flashed across Xiao Jing's eyes. It was not a big deal for her to be bullied by other princes, but Commandery Prince Qing, who was a nobody, dared to slap him in the face. "Yes, they said that I'm just your daughter of non-lineal descent, and your daughter of lineal descent is just the lowest Baolin. Why should I be a consort with a rank?" Xiao Wanru knew that Xiao Jing had never cared about her, so she specially mentioned Xiao Yanru. Xiao Yanru was the lowest Baolin, and the status of a consort of Commandery Prince Qing was much higher than that of Baolin. Because of Xiao Yanru, Xiao Jie didn't even have a title. Chu Qing had really gone too far. Xiao Jing's heart was burning with anger, and he gritted his teeth hard. If he were still the old Duke Xing, he would directly fight his way to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion and would never give up until Chu Qing apologized. But at this moment, Marquis Xing's mansion was in a storm, and he had not been cleared of suspicion for the time being. Although it was impossible to find out what had happened in the past, he was still suspected. For him, if there was no great change in his future official career, it would be impossible for him to have any future. Unless Prince Cheng, whom he favored, could ascend to the throne, he could get an important position. Compared with Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, Xiao Jing had always favored Prince Cheng, and he was also very angry about his daughter's previous behavior. He favored Prince Cheng, so his daughter could only marry into Prince Cheng's mansion. As for Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, they were useless. Otherwise, his daughter would not have ended up like this and even faked her death to leave the Imperial Palace. It was useless for Xiao Ru to hesitate. This time, he would not allow her to be so willful and ruin both herself and Marquis Xing's mansion. As long as Prince Chung could succeed, everything that had happened before would not be a big deal. The position of the heir of Marquis Xing would also be restored, and Marquis Xing's mansion would be restored to Duke Xing's mansion because of the merit of conferring the throne. Everything would not be a problem as long as he followed Prince Chung closely and sent his daughter to him. "Since you don't want to go, stay here and take good care of your grandma." Xiao Jing stood up and said coldly. After that, he turned around and strode away. "Yes, father. I will take good care of grandma." Xiao Jie was overjoyed and said hurriedly. Since her father had said so, he would definitely send someone to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion to inform her. After that, she would not leave Marquis Xing's mansion in any case. If Chu Qing insisted on sending someone to pick her up, she would escape. Even if she escaped from the capital city, she would never return to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion or live with the woman in that mansion again. She stood up with complacency in her eyes. Looking at old Madam lying on the bed, she smiled. This damn old woman had always looked down on her and thought that she was inferior to Xiao Yanru. She must have never thought that she would fall into her hands one day. She didn't want her life. As long as she lived like this, there was no reason for her to hate her. As a person who couldn't even speak, no one would know what she meant and no one would guess that it was her who did it. When Nanny Yu entered the room, she saw Xiao Jie standing in front of old Madam's bed with a smile on her face. Compared with old Madam, who was lying unconscious on the bed, Xiao Jie inexplicably felt gloomy. With a clang, Xiao Jie was alarmed. She looked up and saw Nanny Yu squatting down to clean up the basin that had fallen to the ground. She hurriedly put away the complacent smile on her face and stepped forward to help Nanny Yu clean up. She thought that Nanny Yu didn't see anything, but in fact, it was her who didn't see it. She didn't see Nanny Yu's trembling fingers tightly holding one side of the basin and the fear in her eyes. There were some things that couldn't be guessed, especially for Nanny Yu, who had always been a smart person. If she hadn't seen Second Miss's expression, she might not have guessed it. But now she understood everything. No wonder old Madam was so excited when she saw Second Miss and even pushed her down. Although old Madam didn't treat Second Miss well and usually didn't take her seriously, she was her biological grandmother after all. She protected her and let her grow up safely. Without old Madam, how could Madame Jiang tolerate Second Miss? The news of old Madam's stroke came to Prince Chen's mansion in the evening. Xiao Wanru and Chu Luqian came together. Hearing that they came, Xiao Jing personally led them to old Madam's Chuntang courtyard. In the dark of night, lanterns had been lit in the courtyard. Chu Luqian walked in front with a lazy look. Xiao Wanru took a step back and followed him slowly. Although they didn't speak, the atmosphere was faintly good. Xiao Jing coughed in a low voice, trying to break the silence. Marquis Xing, has the Ministry of Justice finished recording the statement? Chu Luqian suddenly asked. He squinted at Xiao Jing, who was also behind him, and then reached out to grab Xiao Wanru's sleeve and pulled her forward a few steps. She happened to walk side by side with him, leaving Xiao Jing alone behind them. It has been recorded. Xiao Jing didn't want to talk about the Ministry of Justice at all, especially in front of Xiao Wanru. He coughed in a low voice and said, "Have you found any clues?" Chu Luqian said indifferently, "Recently, the Ministry of Justice has not been as efficient as before. A good person was killed in the Ministry of Justice. Who could not tolerate Madame Jiang? Or was he afraid that Madame Jiang would say something terrible, so he killed her?" That's right. Xiao Jing was so angry that his liver hurt. It was easy to point at a monk and call him a bald donkey. However, he didn't dare to contradict Chu Luqian. Chu Luqian was a person who wreaked havoc. He always acted according to his heart and was ruthless. If he really provoked him, he might cause trouble. No matter what it was, it must be his fault in the end. Xiao Jing was angry and resentful, but he could only clench his teeth and suppress the anger in his heart. "Prince, don't worry. I will find out the truth. That's the best. Marquis Xing, you also need to be careful. Madame of Jiang died when she was recording the statement. If something happened to Marquis Xing at that time, Xiao Yuanhao would become the new Marquis Xing. He is too young." Chu Luqian smiled and said leisurely. Xiao Jing clenched his hands hard, and the blue veins on his forehead couldn't help but jump a few times. He finally calmed down and said, "Prince, you are really funny. Who dares to make trouble in the Ministry of Justice? I will be very safe in the Ministry of Justice, and nothing will happen to me." Marquis Xing trusts the Ministry of Justice too much. If the Ministry of Justice is so powerful, your wife will not have an accident in the Ministry of Justice, Chu Luqian said disapprovingly. He insisted that Madame of Jiang was killed by someone. Xiao Jing's face was very dark. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.